Members of the Public Works and Infrastructure Committee, please report to Committee Room 1 for quorum. Thank you. Members of the Public Works and Infrastructure Committee, please report to Committee Room 1 for quorum. Thank you. Members of the Public Works and Infrastructure Committee, this is your third and final call. Please report to Committee Room 1 for quorum.
Okay. So do we do roll call? Do we do roll call?
You can look to me, I'll do the roll call.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I don't know, since there's a little bit of a delay, do you have any time?
I do,
to
yeah.
start?
We're actually just about to, I have to do one thing, I'll come right out. Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry to inform everyone that we haven't achieved quorum, and the clerk has advised me that the meeting is now adjourned, unfortunately. I want to extend my humblest apologies to all the people who came out this morning to be part of this meeting at 9:30. We are missing 3 members of our committee. And what this means now is that we would recommence now at 1:30 according to the city policies and rules. We will start again this meeting officially at 1:30, hopefully with quorum. At this time, we're going to do a roll call.
Madam Chair, the members present are Councillor Holliday, Councillor McMahon, Councillor Robinson. Members absent, Councillor Lee, Councillor Moser, and Councillor Perruzza. Thank you.
Thank you. So on behalf of the members that are here and present, Councillor McMahon, Councillor Holliday, and myself, Councillor Robinson, our apologies for this. It's very unfortunate. So we will restart this meeting at 1:30 p.m. this afternoon. Okay, we're going to get started. We do actually have quorum now. Thank you, everybody. So we apologize again for this morning. It was very unfortunate. I want to call the meeting to order. Public Works and Infrastructure Committee meeting, November 21st. And I want to, of course, welcome our members of our committee and members of council who are visiting here today. I'd like to also welcome the members of the public who are watching live online. The agenda for today is in real time, and so if you go to www.toronto.ca/council, you can be part of today's proceedings. Okay, and we also want to very importantly acknowledge that we are meeting today on the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the New Credit First Nation and the Haudenosaunee, the Huron-Wendat, and home to many diverse Indigenous people. So we have 17 items on today's agenda, and there are a lot of important items. And so I think I just start off by asking for declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? Seeing none, could I have somebody to move the minutes? Councillor Holyday is moving the minutes. All in favor? That passes. And then we're going to just now run through the agenda. And I do have one addition. I have one addition to the agenda. Okay, so let's go through the agenda. So we've got PW 17.1, the amendment to purchase order for the professional engineering services during construction for the 2 trunk sewer rehabilitation contracts. Does anybody want to move that item? Councillor Holyday moves it. All in favor? That is carried. PW 17.2, contract award for tender call number 262-2016, reconfiguration of 6 points interchange, Phase 2. Moved. That is moved. All those in favor? That carries. PW 17.3, contract award for tender call 97-2016, secondary treatment upgrades and amendment to the purchase orders for contracted professional services for wastewater process upgrades at the Humber Wastewater Treatment Plant. Councillor McMahon's moving that. All those in favor? That carries. PW 17.4, restatement and amendments to Green Lane Landfill First Nations Community Benefits Agreement. Do we have speakers on that?
4, no.
We do?
Number 4, no.
No, and there's no speakers. There was talk about there might be some, but there's no. So does somebody want to move that, given that we have no speakers? Councillor McMahon? All in favor? That carries. All right. PW 17.5, Reen Drive to the Gardens, environmental assessment study, and we do have a speaker on that, so I will hold this item, PW 7.5, in my name. PW 17.6, One Layla Place, this is Lawrence Heights redevelopment, accepting the lands. Any questions, or somebody? Councillor McMahon's moving it. Thank you, Councillor McMahon. All those in favor? That carries. PW 17.7, maintenance fees for paver streets. We have speakers on that. So again, I will hold 17.7 in my name. PW 17.8, amendment to the red light camera processing center agreement to include the City of London. That is moved by Councillor Holyday. All in favor? That carries. PW 17.9, Metrolinx Eglinton Crosstown LRT long-term temporary traffic and parking amendments. Okay, that's moved by Councillor McMahon. All those in favor? That carries. PW 17.10, Sherburne-Wellesley street track review, design improvements. Councillor, I think Ainsley, this was your initiative? No, it wasn't? Oh, I thought it was. Anyway, I think we're going to hold it for speakers nonetheless, even if Councillor Ainsley doesn't want to speak on it, because we have speakers, so I'll hold that one in my name. PW 17. Okay, I'm going to give you credit for it, but let's see if it passes first. PW 17.11, bicycle traffic control signals, St. Clair Avenue West and Poplar Plains Road. Oh, there's a speaker on that, so I'll hold that in my name. And then PW 17.12, Broader Construction Association Consultation Annual Update Report. There's speakers on that? No? Okay, so no speakers. So Councillor Holliday is going to move it. All those in favor, that carries. PW 17.13, Road Safety for Children. We have speakers on this, so I'll hold that in my name. PW 17.14, Preventing Injuries from Wintertime Slips and Falls. I also believe we have at least one speaker on that. So I will, that may have changed though, given that we're moved to the afternoon, but I will hold that in my name. PW 17.15, Smart Roads Technology. We have a speaker, one speaker on that. Again, I will hold that in my name. PW 17.16, Toronto Waters Tree Protection Policy and Guidelines. Anybody want to hold that or move that? Councillor McMahon will move it. All in favor? That carries. PW 17.17, this is the curbside waste collection services, east and west of Yonge Street. We do have a speaker on that, and there's been a recommendation we move this to the top of the agenda. All those in favor of that? Carried. Thank you. And I believe there is one more item to introduce, which I can't seem to find it right now. Do you have the item I'm introducing? Oh, here it is. Is this it? Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. That's great. So here we have another item that's been circulated, I believe, that public, it hasn't been? Okay, so I'll introduce the item and then we can vote on it. That Public Works and Infrastructure Committee reopen item PW 16.8, extending the parking pad moratorium to areas outside of the former City of Toronto, and add the item to the agenda. That's just to reintroduce it. That's not what the motion says. I see panic in your eyes. So I'm reintroducing that. So the motion is what you know it is. Do you want to put the motion? Can we put the motion and then just move it?
This has to be moved.
Oh, so all those in favor? Yeah. Yeah. This is to reintroduce it. All in favor? Somebody get a photo of that. That carries. And now the item, do you want to put the motions up? Apparently that happened at North York Community Council too. It's a pattern. Have you got the motions? There it is, folks. Softened. All right? There was some chatter about this at council. All in favor? That carries. Yeah, that carries. Okay, so that is good work. Already we've actually addressed a lot of the items on the agenda, but we do have a lot of speakers and a lot of deputants, so.
Madam Chair, I understand it's like slam, bam, thank you, man, but can we just like take a breath and kind of like see what this is? I didn't see the vote. What happened with the vote?
We moved to introduce it, and then we moved these motions, A, B, and C, and it was 3-1. Absolutely, but we already voted on it, but I guess we'll accommodate your request. Do I have to reopen it again, clerks?
No, you just have to take a vote on the.
If a recorded vote is requested after a vote has been taken, the recorded vote must take place.
So we have to reintroduce it. So we reintroduce.
No, just a recorded vote on this item. It was
Oh,
already
okay, so go
reintroduced.
ahead. You go ahead. You're the record.
On the motion to refer the item, all those in favor, please. Councillor Holliday, Councillor McMahon, Councillor Robinson. All those opposed? Councillor Perusa. That carries 3-1.
Head to the agenda. And the committee has actually voted to move PW 17.7, curbside waste collection services east and west of Yonge Street, a request for direction, to the top of this agenda. So we do have a number of speakers, so we're going to move to our speakers first. Actually, we have one speaker. Is this it?
Yes.
Okay, so PW 17.7, we've got Matt here. Matt, I hope I can say your name properly. Figliano. Oh, that's lovely. Matt, welcome. How are you? You've got 5 minutes. I'll start the clock once you get situated. You just push the button there and we'll be able to hear you, and away you go.
Ready? Good afternoon. My name is Matt Figliano. I'm the Vice President of CUPE Local 416. Today represents another attempt by the Mayor to fire 500 working city employees in solid waste collection through privatization. I am respectfully asking this committee to do the right thing and what's best for Torontonians and the city. Put this issue to bed once and for all by receiving this staff report and show city employees the respect they deserve for the hard work and dedication they demonstrate day in and day out as they perform their duties for the Toronto residents. However, in 2015, staff report vetted and peer-reviewed by Ernst & Young has already concluded that there would be no cost savings with further privatization, and that in some areas of the city, it is cheaper to use city employees to collect waste than it is to use the private sector. In fact, the city staff report concluded that the current model is effective in terms of cost and performance, and then the city should continue with the current model rather than incurring an associated cost, time and effort to undertake a procurement process and redeploy staff. Most question why Mayor John Tory and Councillor Jay Robinson continued to push for privatization despite the facts. Councillor Robinson just last week said she is committed to contracting all waste collection. The reason is simple. This is not a debate about cost or what's best for the city. This is ideological. This is an ideological debate. This is a debate about whether the city respects its employees and recognizes the hard work they do. The city can be a leader for decent, safe, and reliable careers. The jobs that Mayor Tory and Councillor Robinson want to remove are done by hardworking city employees. These jobs support families, a decent quality of life, and allow our members to retire with dignity. These hardworking people make about $50,000 a year. It's a decent wage for an extremely difficult job. In closing, I ask you to consider the facts when making your decision, and review the Ernst & Young conclusion, which clearly shows that maintaining in-house waste collection east of Yonge works. The 500 members that work hard in solid waste on behalf of the Torontonians should know that they have a government that appreciates and recognizes their dedication and hard work. Today, you can send a message to current city employees and future ones that the city doesn't treat employees like a commodity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions for the speaker? Councillor Davis.
Thank you. Thank you very much for coming today. The report before us is to request another report with updated statistics and so on. But I wondered if you could tell me if you have information on the increased costs associated with contracted out services, either in Toronto or beyond Toronto.
I apologize. I don't have that information. That wasn't made.
Okay, is it some information that you could get?
Of course, I can get that information and report back to you.
Okay. Recently, there's a strike happening now in Peel. Could you just explain, those are contracted out jobs, but they're unionized, is that right?
Correct.
Can you just explain?
They're the same. In reality, they're the same current model we have today. They're solid waste workers contracted out that are unionized. Exact same model we have here today.
And their rates of pay
are the exact same as ours.
Are they?
Yep.
Oh, okay. And okay, that's all I think I'll ask. But one of the suggestions is somehow there's always been this notion that somehow a bargaining unit could bid on a contract, kind of like an outside contractor would. And I have never understood how that worked, managed competition or whatever. Do you understand that notion?
So what I take from that is basically bargaining again after bargaining.
I see.
So basically, they want us to make a plan, and this is my take, I'm not insinuating that this is what councilors want. Basically, they want us to negotiate with our employees to say, well, we'll do it at a rate of, let's say, my employees would get $20 an hour pay, we'll reduce their benefits, or basically
So
negotiating after
renegotiating the
negotiating.
collective agreement is essentially what that is.
Right.
Okay, thank you. Now I understand.
Councillor Perruzza, did you have a question?
Yeah, all I just wanted to try to get some clarity, because I'm not understanding it. So in Peel region, garbage collection is currently privatized.
Right.
So the region of Peel has a private service. The private provider, the answer to that question was yes, right?
Right.
Yeah, okay. The private providers, their employees are unionized.
Correct.
Right. They wouldn't be CUPE 416, they'd be like Teamsters or some,
They're, if I'm not mistaken, they're Leuna.
I'm sorry?
Leuna?
They're Leuna, okay. So they are unionized employees working for private collectors.
Correct.
Okay. When you were asked the question about wages and are those wages comparable, are you saying that the wages of those employees are comparable to the city wages paid here, or are they comparable to the private sector wages paid for by the collector in that region?
Go ahead.
We believe it's in that region that the
Okay.
wages are, and what they don't get paid are benefits and pension as well.
Right. So they would be like, they would be private sector wages, and whatever their pay package is, it's not similar to what the municipal employees that are your members who work for the City of Toronto are paid in District 4.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, gentlemen. And we are going to move to questions of staff. That was our last speaker, one and only speaker. So who would like to ask questions? Councillor Davis?
Speaker, I have questions in camera.
Okay, well then we have to clear the room, and everybody's been cleared out once already today.
Under what reason?
Under what reason? Because
Because there's a purple report.
Yeah, but
what's your reason for wanting to go into camera?
Because I want to ask questions of the confidential report. It's a labor relations report.
So we have a real problem. We actually lost our whole morning due to lack of quorum, and then we've been told by Councillor Perruzza he can only be here till 4 o'clock. And we have important agenda items we need to deal with that are time sensitive. So that's what we're up against, Councillor Davis, just so you understand the lay of the land, what the people in the audience have had to endure today. So
But councillors have a right to ask questions of a confidential report.
okay, so you would have to go in closed session for labor,
Well, can I,
Yes, there is a purple report.
Chair,
related to labor relations.
sorry, can I suggest, is there any way to stand this down so we can go through some of the other items and let people go? And we'll do it well before we lose quorum. And that way we only vacate once and it's at the end just because some of them are, we only have one and two speakers, or maybe not even one speaker at this
Probably
point.
left. Counselor, or Deputy Mayor?
I'm just wondering if the counselor can ask those questions offline and maybe get her answers, and maybe that might satisfy her, and then we can just continue on with the public questioning and keep this item going.
Okay, Counselor, would you be able to do that, given that the people attending today have been pushed to 1:30 and now asked to leave the room again?
I do have a right to ask them, but I'm happy, I do have a right to ask them in camera.
I'm not saying, I have never actually ever said otherwise.
Okay.
But what's being suggested around the table is, given that the course, our day has how it's unfolded, if that would
I just
be
think in
suitable.
camera, everyone has a chance to hear the answers. I'm happy to have it deferred until the end or at another time. I don't see any problem with answering public questions, and then if there are still confidential questions, we can go in camera.
Okay. So I've just been advised, if we are going to go in closed session, that we're to do it now. That's been how we've been advised, so. Yeah, I guess I will need a motion.
So we can't stand this down, is
That's what I've been told.
Put your mic on, Jen.
Okay, what's the wishes of the committee? Okay, there was no motion been put forward to go into private. Okay. Pardon? Do you have any public questions, Councillor Davis? Okay, so we'll move on with public questions. Okay, Councillor Denzel, or Deputy Mayor Denzelman and Wong.
I'm looking at a document that says, I'm very curious about this, that the solid waste staff has increased. In the last 10 years, the bureaucracy has almost doubled, despite the fact that waste collection has contracted out. Maybe through you, Madam Chair, we could ask Mr. McKay if he might comment on that statement.
Through you, Madam Chair. So over the past 10 years, our staff complement has been reduced by a little over 300 positions. Some of that is due to contracting out, some of it due to service efficiencies, but we haven't actually added additional net new positions. What we do is we'll do a reorganization, a restructure, convert positions from one to another, but we haven't had any net new positions.
So just to be clear, I don't think we ever had 300 managerial positions in the solid waste department, at least I hope not. This actually talks to managerial positions. So do you know if the managerial positions have increased?
No, to my knowledge, we have not increased them. We've simply reorganized to reflect the nature of our business.
So this comment by QP we could set aside as not being true?
I believe it's incorrect, yes.
Okay. I'm fine. You can put me down to speak.
Okay, Councillor Fletcher?
Yes, just back on that question, was there not some new management added when you realized that you hadn't had managers for the contracted out section, the new two?
Through you, Madam Chair, the way we deal with that is we had managers for the operations in District 2 when we had in-house services. What we need to do when that got contracted out was to reposition those managers to now become contract administrators. So it's more of a reorganization to reflect the change in the business structure than it is adding actual positions.
Oh, but you weren't costing that to contracting out when you first started, as I recall. Am I correct?
Those are all part of the numbers in the report 1A here, that what this deferral report is asking for is the ability for me to bring a report back that updates all those, does a review to make sure that those types of items are actually included.
Just looking at the your report 17-7, November 3rd, and it says the comments here, you're looking for all these different matrices, and then an additional stakeholder input has been provided. Who were the additional stakeholders?
That,
have
there
a
hasn't,
list?
through you, Madam Chair, there isn't a formal process that's been undertaken. It's simply comments that have been received through various discussions that I've had since I've started. And basically what they are is identifying potential gaps in the document that need to be filled.
Sorry, additional stakeholder input is very clear language for the city, which is a formal thing. So you're basically, are you saying that it wasn't really additional stakeholder input, as people have to be identified as stakeholders in order to acknowledge their input
Yeah.
formally?
Through you, Madam Chair, my apologies if that sounded extremely formal, like we undertook consultation on this item. We did not.
So that's
This is
not-
simply input that we have received over time, including, the input that I just received a minute ago from our CUPE representatives, which will be taken into account in the January report.
So I'm not sure, speak about that. Additional stakeholder input's very clear when the city asks for input. There's designated lists. I'm not sure how this report got here, Mr. Deputy City Manager, with that. It appears to be very formal, and it does not actually, is not formal. So how would you address that? Although I know you're sitting in for Mr. Libby today.
Through you, Madam Chair, I'd interpret it the way that Mr. McKay just explained it. It's just the wording. It wasn't his intention to make it sound like it was a formal stakeholder engagement process. It was input that was received over the course of the past year from when the original report was tabled.
Right.
There have been many people talking to staff, the deputy city manager as well as the general manager, and they've made comments on that previous report.
And how would that be solidified, that you would know exactly all the people that had inputs into this report?
Through you, Madam Chair, in the report back, typically what staff would do is if they agree to update or modify information on a previous report, they typically would provide a background on some comments received and how they address those comments, if they're relevant or pertinent to the discussion.
Little bit of an issue, then, I'm hearing. Can I just go to this chart in the Ernst & Young that has, it's on page 8, the Ernst & Young, and it's all of the different cost centers for pickup and all of the different pieces.
Are you timing this, Madam Chair?
District 1, 2, 3, 4. I just want to go to the night shift. Am I right to assume that initially, when the first Auditor General's report came out with the night shift cost, it had actually been rolled into District 3? And now you've separated them out in this report?
Through you, Madam Chair, the numbers have been presented both ways. In some cases, they are included in District 3. In other cases, they're separated out. We have the ability to do both. Again, when I bring back, hopefully, an updated analysis in January, we can identify what within District 3 includes night collections versus what is standalone daytime curbside collections.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Davis has decided she'd like to speak in public.
Or ask questions.
Ask questions, I'm sorry, that's what I meant.
So I still want to follow up on the question that Councillor, oh my goodness, it's Councillor Fletcher asked, which was having to do with the additional information. Oh, now she's lost my spot. Sorry. Maybe you can answer this. You said that, Mr. General Manager, that there are gaps that you're hoping to fill. Could you just tell us kind of generally what are the gaps? You said that in an answer to Councillor Fletcher's question about information you got through stakeholder consultations. What are
Yes.
those gaps that are in?
Through you, Madam Chair, some of the gaps that we're aware of now, for example, going through the 2017 budget process, we have much more detailed information on the current state of the fleet. And I think that's the type of information that is potentially a gap in the existing report that needs to be brought into the discussion. So it is a more fulsome discussion with more detailed data that is now available to us, and bring that forward to you as well.
Will we get information about the changing costs associated with Districts 1 and 2?
Through you, Madam Chair, that is the intent of the January report, is to bring updated information forward on all those types of items.
And are you going to get any information about other municipalities? I don't recall us having information on other municipalities.
Through you, Madam Chair, yes. In fact, in the old report, there is information on other municipalities across North America, different types of service delivery models, how they approach it. Again, we'll bring that back updated as well, and hopefully a little bit more information around costing that goes along with that.
And what does it mean by staffing and financial-related challenges as a result of the lack of clarity on future waste collection service provision direction?
So again, through you, Madam Chair, this is all information that we'll detail in the January report. But again, to give you an example, one of the things that we have heard back is we are having troubles right now filling our collection operators, the actual drivers, out in the field, filling those positions because of the uncertainty around this debate and whether there is a long-term job there. Again, that's the type of information that we want to incorporate into the analysis around those vacancies. What has that meant to the division? Has that increased overtime, which skews the financials? That's the type of analysis that we have better handle on now, and we want to bring that forward.
It's what, you're saying we're having trouble filling positions?
Not yet. Through you, Madam Chair, yes, as is the rest of the industry right now. This is an industry-wide problem in filling somewhat specialized DZ positions. There is a shortage of drivers out there right now.
Both in-house collection and contracted out collection?
That's correct.
We have an entire Toronto Employment and Social Services whose job it is to do pre-employment training and recruitment for jobs that are difficult to fill. Are you working with TESS?
Through you, Madam Chair, absolutely. We're working quite aggressively with them, with many other agencies, partnerships with truck driver schools, going to where we can ever find these drivers, working with our union counterparts to see, to get ideas as to how we can fill these positions more effectively.
And I wonder if you could explain to me this notion of a union bidding on work, or including them in an RFP process. Maybe, Mr. DiGeronimo, you're aware of where or if that's happened, and what form does it take? Because
Through you, Madam Chair, yes, the managed competition process has been used by other municipalities. It's a structured process that gets included as part of the request for proposal call process that gets issued by the city, where essentially the city staff and the union get to make a bid submission alongside private sector bidders, and you compare the two bids. It's a very structured process, requires proper analysis and scoring in advance, and a lot of legwork has to be done in order to prepare both sides for such a bid.
So maybe I can ask that of labor relations, legal staff, because we have been advised in the past that that is not a process that they were familiar with.
Through you, Madam Chair, if that is the manner in which this matter is going to proceed, I do think that that's something that's going to have to be addressed in the report when it comes back in January, the prospect for proceeding in that manner or alternatives to that approach.
Maybe I can ask it in the confidential portion.
Okay. Other questions of staff? Councillor Nunziata, go ahead.
I wasn't going to ask a question, but just on that point, that we went through that process and we did that when we contracted out West of Yonge, right?
No.
Through you, Madam Chair, no, we did not. That was purely private sector contractor bids.
So I thought that we did ask the union at that time to be part of the negotiations. We didn't?
No, through you, Madam Speaker, no, the The last process was a straight request for proposal for private sector bidders. We did discuss and negotiate with the union transitional provisions. With respect to the question asked about managed competition, it is a defined process used by other municipalities and requires it to be run just like a regular proposal call, but it has rules on both sides. So it's a bit more complicated. We did not use that last time.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Okay, other questions? If not, we're moving to, Councillor Peruzza, go ahead.
Just a couple of questions. So what percentage of the collection business is currently the cities, across the city of Toronto?
Through you, Madam Chair, about a third of it. So everything curbside, single family, east of Yonge
But
is
I'm
public,
saying
everything else is
all of
private.
it, all together, commercial, industrial, multi-res, residential. If you took all of the garbage collection services citywide, what percentage or portion of that is currently done by, I heard the number 500 city employees. I think the number's lower than that.
In terms of the waste that the city has control and responsibility for collecting,
No, all of it. I'm
in-house
talking
is
about all of the waste.
40%. Of all the garbage right now managed and recycling in the city, we don't even have data on the industrial, commercial sources that we're not responsible for managing.
But if you had to make an educated guess, being in the business like you are, what percentage would that be? 15%, 20%?
It'd be at least double what we're responsible for.
I'm sorry?
It'd be at least double what the city is responsible for collecting in total right now.
It would be at least double what the city is responsible for. So what you're saying, it's something south of 30% or 33%?
What I'm saying is, and again, we can get more numbers or try
Is
to
that the
assess-
way your report is going to be written too, using that kind of language? It's a simple question. What percentage of garbage collection is the city currently doing with these 400-plus employees citywide? Simple question.
Through you, Madam Chair, it's actually not a simple question at all. It's quite a complex question with a very big data gap that is problematic right now. We know exactly what the percentage is of what we're responsible for. What we don't know is how much out there right now that we don't have control over, we don't have responsibility for collecting. All we do know is that 100%
Let me ask you
of
another
it is
question.
private sector.
How many properties across the city of Toronto? This you must have data on, right? Commercial, industrial, multi-res, residential. How many properties in Toronto?
Madam
Should I ask that of the assessment department, or are you good with that?
Yeah, Madam Chair, we'll have to bring that information back because it's not really properties in some cases, it's number of units is probably more important.
That's what I meant, number of units. So if you have an apartment building with 200 units, each one of those is a unit. It's a residence, right?
That's correct. And through you, Madam
or-
Chair, I
or a
don't have
commercial unit.
that information at hand. All I have is what we're responsible for.
All right. So the last report that we had, basically it indicated that that in the interim, you folks said this, that currently there is no rationality or justification for continuing to privatize garbage collection. We should take a pause. I believe at that time you had indicated should be, and the consultants had indicated the same thing, it should be a couple of years. We should take a pause, see how it all lays out, and then come back and perhaps report back on that. What's the urgency now? Why are you advancing the clock on your own pause?
So through you, Madam Chair, we took a pause with a deferral back to fourth quarter of 2016, and we're here today.
Fourth quarter 2017. Your
Fourth quarter of 2016, the report had to be brought back, and this is the last meeting of 2016. It could be
Fourth quarter
brought back.
2017, I believe your consultant's report. I think if you go back.
Through Madam Chair, just to add
this-
clarity, The motion from the last committee was come back.
No, I understand the
with
last
quarter.
committee. I'm talking about the report.
But the 2-year, and I'm going to answer the question of the 2-year. So when the staff report did say 2 years would be a good pause. We're past the year now, and staff are now asking for permission to proceed to update information so we can bring it forward in January. And if then you follow the normal progression, it'll take us almost to the 2-year mark that we had outlined in the original report.
Okay. All right. So let me ask the question a slightly different way. Why did you suggest that we should take a pause?
Through you, Madam Chair, my understanding is because when we ran all the numbers, it looked like it would make sense to take a pause for 2 years, look at other opportunities for efficiencies that could be achieved within the in-house operations. That pause, to add to my colleague over here, has become problematic now because we're having staffing challenges to fill positions, and it's been further complicated by direction now that came through Executive Committee that we're not allowed to buy any more trucks until this issue is resolved. And so we're at a situation now where we can't afford to defer this debate any longer. We need clear direction as to how we're going to proceed east of Yonge.
I have another question. Can we have a second round then? Why can't we have a second round?
Because you have to leave at
All these people have been waiting all day to participate in this process, and we have a whole bunch of documents, so we would like to proceed. Thank you. Any speakers on this item? Councillor or Deputy Mayor President.
Question? So in terms of discussing this with companies, like any potential bidders, right? Lobbyist rules apply, yes? Is that correct? Would that be fair to assume? So some company X who does private collection, if they come to see me, they have to register as a lobbyist, correct?
The lobbyist rules apply at any time. There are restrictions then for lobbying when we have an open RFP, of which we do not right now.
And so if an RFP were issued or a tender were issued, there would be there would be no communications with members of council, right?
Through you, Madam Chair, our advice would be to be no communication when the tender is out on the street. That's correct.
So, but also, would those rules apply, because this is transactional, if 416 was involved in this arrangement, that they would also have to register as a lobbyist, as opposed to regular negotiations, et cetera?
Through you, Madam Speaker, I'd have to refer that to the lobbyist registrar for a ruling specifically on the union, but from the rules of from a purchasing and managed competition, which I'm familiar with, you would have similar type restrictions while the competition is out on the street for fairness.
But if we were talking about a managed competition right now, before that managed competition took place.
Madam Chair, point of order. I'm just not understanding what we're doing right now.
I'm doing a point of order.
I understood it. I'm understanding it as a series of questions back and forth, questions you didn't allow.
No, I'm asking the chair.
What is the point of order? Maybe you as the chair have a greater sense of clarity on that, on what that point of order might be.
Well, I just.
Specifically, he's asking questions.
Madam Chair, you know what? I'll refrain from asking questions. I'll refrain from asking questions. Maybe.
Those are questions of staff.
Sorry.
Yeah.
May I? Go ahead, please. Maybe the chair might want to consult, because this is in her, this is as the chair of the committee. It's kind of in this gray area if the union is involved in a procurement process, whether they are required to lobby. It might be in the committee's best interest to advise the committee members and all members of council going forward. Anyway, I can speak on this. You can start my clock whenever you want.
Councillor Davis wants to speak.
Oh, okay.
Recommendation, sorry, Denzel, you want to speak now? Or
Sure, I'll speak.
Councillor Davis.
Well, I mean, if council, I'll speak.
I don't go first?
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I don't care, really, except I have to go somewhere. Thank you. Unfortunately, we have not been able to go into camera. And the questions I had in camera relate specifically to important information that would determine whether or not there's really any significant change in the fundamental question of the cost differentials from here and since 2015, What is also not clear to me, and is important to determine whether or not a subsequent report is required, is whether or not there were significant changes to the collective agreement that may affect the decisions as they did last time. This is the document, my colleagues, that gave all the rationale for why there was a delay. And without having the opportunity to explore this content now, I'm not sure that you have been able to judge whether or not there's going to be any relevant information to update. So it's unfortunate that there wasn't that opportunity. And I do believe that the holding back of the trucks is putting this division in a very difficult situation. I also was surprised to learn about the inability to find staff. But I don't believe that there was any necessity for a report back and that a decision should be made on this. And I don't know what the delay is intended to do other than to create a different kind of report and potentially with a different direction. The first time round, it was very clear. The former general manager said the costs did not justify contracting out East of Yonge. And I presume those cost differences, if cost of living has gone up in the contracted service sector, which it has, then the differences between these two will be even greater. What the deployment obligations are, redeployment obligations, and what the bumping obligations are, and all of those labor relations obligations we have not had a chance to explore today. So you're making a decision today without the information you need, and that's unfortunate. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I just want one comment. It's just once again, the City of Toronto is speaking out of both sides of its mouth.
Okay.
On one hand, we say we believe in good jobs, decent pay, and we want the people of the City of Toronto to have decent jobs. And we've done that on our social service side, our social development side, and yet when it comes to actually decent jobs with decent benefits for the people who work for us, it's a different story. And I think, I'm hopeful. I mean, I won't predetermine and I won't prejudge the report that will come to us, but I trust that that side of the equation will be considered as well when that report comes forward. And the experience of other municipalities in other jurisdictions who have decided to bring work back in, I hope that is in there as well as the updated information on all of the other private sector contracts that are currently under negotiation, particularly in Peel, who are out on strike, that Leona local. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Denzelman and Wong.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess where I might start off at is there's a place where Councillor Davis and I agree. At a certain level, I don't believe that we actually do need a report. I'm full on all about going out to put out a tender right now. Because the history has shown that, all due respect to the public service, that their analysis in the past has not been entirely accurate. So let me take you back to the years of David Miller when he said there was no savings to be had, right? Contracting out, I think, District 2. And he had the support of public service then. And we know that that was wrong. Then we take you back to the next report that was done, I believe, right after 2010, 2011, when I was chair of Public Works. And they said that they could find savings, but they could only find this much savings. I think they thought it was going to be around $128 a ton, that's thereabouts. And so what we did was, and they were wrong. They thought we could only save a little bit of money, but we actually were able, when we put the tender out, we were able to save $88 million over the life of the contract. $88 million over the life of the contract. That's not a small amount of money. That is a large amount of money. And now we have another report out saying that there's no savings involved. I don't believe that report. I believe that the former general manager of solid waste, I know because she told me, had a certain predisposition against contracting out. The only way, and so what we're looking for here is we're looking to find a better price with equal or better service. It's pretty simple. If we want the garbage collected at the best price possible, and we want the service to be as good as possible. And the last time around, I remember Councillor Davis putting all sorts of hurdles and barriers and tests to make sure the service was okay. We even referred the report over to the Auditor General to see that we were getting the service that we needed, because the money was clear. We were saving $88 million. And on all levels of measurement, the service was better, and the savings was clear. And so that's the only way we're going to come to ground on this one. The only thing that we need to do is put it out to the market, and the market will tell us if we can do it, if the taxpayers will save money, whether it would be better to contract out, or whether we should keep it in-house. The numbers won't lie. So it's pretty simple. This is a pretty simple arrangement if you're going to determine whether we should contract out District 4 or not. Put it out to tender, get your prices back in, and if the prices are lower, substantially lower, than what the current price is for in-house services, then our path is clear. You could get any consultancy, Ernst Young, PwC, Joe Schmo, to write any report that you want, and you could come up with any answer that you'd like to see. But the numbers don't lie. Put it out to the private sector, ask them how much they're prepared to collect garbage for, and they will tell you. And if we like the price, we should go with it. And so it's pretty simple to me. And the other thing is, it's pretty simple to the public, Madam Chair. They see it as this is pretty easy. Garbage collection is not rocket science. When we contracted out District 2, we had a few bumps along the way. The first 6 months was not easy, but once we got it down, I think people in District 2 are pretty satisfied with the service that they're getting. And I'm pretty sure that's the way it would happen in District 4 as well. I'm told, when I checked about 5 or 6 months ago, I think there was a company that we were collecting garbage. They were collecting garbage for like $102 a ton. We're one of the few municipalities, I think, in the province that has public sector collection. Most of it's done in the private sector. And some people talk about strikes and unions like LiUNA or this, that, or the other thing. You know what? Doesn't bother me. I'm not here to be pro or anti-union here today. I'm pro-taxpayer and service. Whoever can deliver it for the cheapest price and for the best and highest service level, that's what we should go with. And we should just be going out there and finding out who can do that.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Denzil Wong. Councillor Nunziata.
Yes, just briefly, Madam Chair. I do support the recommendation that you have before us. We owe it to our taxpayers to find efficiencies. We owe it to them, and if we need to go out to the market, and if we can find a price that we can deliver services to our taxpayers at a most effective way, then we should do that. And I don't know what some members of council are afraid of for the report coming back. And the deputy mayor was correct. When David Miller was mayor, I had in the city of York, in the former city of York, as mayor, I contracted out garbage in the city of York. And then when David Miller was mayor, he brought it back in-house, and then we contracted out again because we knew that there was a huge savings by contracting out in the West End. So what are we afraid of? I don't know. Every time we discuss contracting out services, we always have a huge debate. And we have the union with their lobbyist here trying to lobby members of council. It goes on and on and on. We owe it to the taxpayers of Toronto to deliver the services in a more efficient way, and we need to do that. And so I support the recommendation that's before you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's interesting that you have a, let's contract it out, let's not contract it out. I wasn't here before when the fights were on about contracting it out, not contracting it out, but you know what, stats speak for themselves. You had a report done, you didn't like the report, let's do it again. It seems to be a cliche that happens time and time again. You keep doing the report until you get the, you massage it in order to get what you want. So the question remains, is the second report that you're going to do right now accurate? Because you're going to come back, I bet you dollars to donuts, you're going to come back and you're going to say, let's privatize it. So therefore, the report that was done before that by the previous folks, well, they were not too bright, But these people that we have right now that want us to contract it out, well, they're brighter than the ones before. Have we taken a look at the complaints that we have had received?
Chair, sorry, I just hope you're not speaking about city staff when you're saying that. I'm just being
I'm
mindful.
talking about all of us. Even we, when
Impugning
even we.
people's character, just being mindful.
Are you asking me through the chair? You want to rule on the point of order?
I'm just hoping that you're not impugning through the chair. You're not impugning. We want to be mindful of not
You want to put my time
impugning
on hold?
city staff's character.
No, I'm not, thank you. So we are right now saying we want a new report. And that report might come to satisfy us, and we'll say, oh, well, we got a new report right here, let's go with it. The other question is, have we, as councillors, analyzed what stats we have? Have we analyzed the complaints west of Yonge Street versus east of Yonge Street? Have we analyzed how many complaints 311 has gotten it?
Yes.
Have you gotten the stats from 311?
Yes.
Surprisingly, I was the only one that asked for them.
Well, I have it.
I'm glad you do.
I have it.
Surprisingly, I was the only one that asked for it, and when you analyze and you go deep dive into it, you will find out that the service that we get east of Yonge Street is just as bad, it's better than we got west of Yonge Street. The other situation that you got to also think about is the following. What will happen in 10 years from now if we get rid of our fleets, we get rid of our union, and all of a sudden we're out there putting a tender for somebody to collect the garbage? They'll come back and say, this is what we want. We have no fallback. They're going to hold us hostage. So before you make a decision here, before we make a decision, we got to dive in and take a look at the stats. I have the stats, that's one thing. Analyzing is another thing. So you might have the stats, but I bet you dollars to donuts that you haven't looked at them. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Chair. I intend to support the report before us. I'm actually regret we're not dealing with the matter today, as it was originally due in December. And my understanding about this report is it's an extension, and it gets this report back to us as quickly as possible, which is in January. I guess it was Budget Committee on Friday that just put a 2% hike in garbage rates, and so your average household's going to see $20 on their bin. And I've been scratching my head to figure out how I'm going to explain to my neighbors why we raised the price by $20. And part of the answer, I hope, will be is, yes, we did that. The costs continue to rise, but at least we're going and leaving no stone unturned about finding a better way to deliver the service, if there is one. So I look forward to a report, but most importantly, I look forward to testing the market, as the Deputy Mayor talked about. The only way that we'll really know what the price is, if there is savings to be found, is to actually go and check with the market. And I hope there's a robust procedure to go and do that. And if there is a savings, that's our job here as members of council to continuously evolve services. And I look forward to that process. I look forward to being able to explain to my constituents that we're doing everything we can to manage the costs that eventually trickle back to the users of the service, which are the homeowners that roll their bins out to the street every week. And I hope the members of the committee will also see that as their responsibility as well and support this report forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Other speakers? Councillor Perruzza?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I have an amendment to the motion that just got placed. And I'm putting that forward because I believe that the former report done on this, and you know, and I get this. I understand Councillor Min Wong, or Deputy Mayor Min Wong, basically, he's of the mind that, you know, you go out to the private sector, that you just, you know, it's just somehow magically going to get better. And then you make up a number on savings, and you put it out there, and you say that, you know, that's absolutely true, irrespective of whether it's true or not. Because somebody said somewhere that that's potentially what you could do, then that's the way it's going to be, come hell or high water. I think the report was really, really clear. What it basically said a year ago was that there is no, you know, there is, and by a consultant as well, an independent outside consultant, Ernst & Young. And what they all basically said was, there's no rationality for us going out and basically privatizing a garbage collection in District 4. There's nothing that makes a compelling case either for savings or for anything else. But what we have is we have a few people that fundamentally believe in what they believe, that somehow you're going to get some magical savings, and especially if you get out of the business altogether. And if you leave the business entirely in the hands of 2 or 3 big collectors. Well, you know what? I look at my telephone charges and my telephone rates, and there's only a handful of companies that provide phone service. I'm being gouged. We're all being gouged. And you look at anywhere that happens in our lives, where you only have a handful of people who decide what you're going to pay, and you're going to have to pay it. So really what a few of the ideologues are saying today is, take benefits and pensions that you currently pay to people, to your employees, transfers those monies equal to those pensions and benefits to contractors, to corporations. And somehow, magically, you'll come back here another day and achieve a savings. Sure.
Up on the screen, I'm hoping. And I'll be very brief, just to be sensitive to the people who waited all day to speak on the next items coming up. So my motion is that the supplementary report scheduled for January 18th, 2017 meeting of Public Works and Infrastructure Committee also include a review of options for contracting out waste collection east of Yonge. And that probably comes as no surprise, because I've been talking about it a few days, for the few last week a bit. I just think it's very important we acknowledge that the last report, there was clearly a number of gaps in the analysis. I think everybody's identified that now. The lay of the land has changed dramatically with the 2015 metrics on collection that are now available, which we did not have at the time of the last report. The analysis of the fleet was completed this year, so that's new additional information, so more information and data, and we're ready to move forward. So I think a market sounding is in order. It surprises me it hasn't happened before now, and we're ready to move forward with this market sounding. I would highly recommend that you don't support Councillor Peruzza's motion, which is just delay, 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 delay. Let's make a decision. We've heard from the general manager that we need to make a decision because it impacts jobs, it impacts also the fleet, and to run the division effectively, we need to know which way we're moving forward. So this is dragged on for this entire term. Our first discussion on this was in I think the first meeting of Public Works and Infrastructure shortly after the election. So this has gone on forever. And to support Councillor Peruzza's motion is simply sitting on the sideline and continuing to delay and not make a decision one way or the other. So Councillor Peruzza, you cannot speak at this time. You've done that several times today, and it's not appropriate. Thank you very much. So, Councillor Peruzza, you're not permitted to do that, so thank you very much. Councillor Peruzza, this is my third warning to please, you've delayed us dramatically already today. I would appreciate if you could play within the rules. The rules are you don't speak at this time. You've had your opportunity. So, in a nutshell, I'm moving this motion and supporting the report before us that staff have presented, and we'll look forward to a fulsome or a comprehensive report in January of 2018. So I'll ask...
Point of order?
Please, go ahead.
Chair, may I amend this motion procedurally?
Sure, absolutely. You're welcome to.
My amendment is quite simple. It would just be include a review of options, including a tender for contracting out waste collection east of Yonge.
Okay, is everybody okay with that? Okay, that's good. All right, I will ask that be amended. We asked for a recorded vote. If you could just amend that motion. We're just waiting 1 second here to amend the motion and put it up on the screen.
Peruzza's goes first.
He's asked for a recorded vote.
Yeah, Peruzza's goes first, then his amendment motion, then yours, and then Dr.
Okay, so we're going to start because they're just quickly drafting the amendment.
Unless you want to take it as a friendly amendment, and then,
Sure,
is that okay?
I'll take it as a friendly amendment. But the staff have said they would like to see it in writing, so it's clear.
Saves us having to go through a second step.
Yeah. So what is before us then? I thought it was Councillor Peruzza's first.
I just wanted to check we got his word. Councillor Peruzza's motion is...
Okay, so
This is a recorded vote, Madam Chair. On the amendment proposed by Councillor Peruzza, all those in favor, please. Councillor Peruzza, all those opposed? Councillor Holliday, Councillor McMahon, and Councillor Robinson. That fails. 1 to 3. Thank you. And Councillor Robinson's.
Well, you've done it this morning already, so you've delayed everybody in the room till 1:30 today.
Councillor Robinson's amendment, all those in favor? Councillor Holliday, Councillor McMahon, Councillor Robinson, those opposed? Councillor Peruzza, that carries 3 to 1.
So that includes the amendment, and so we don't have to,
Third one,
no other,
there's another.
okay, one more?
On these staff recommendations, in the report November the 3rd, all those in favor? Councillor Holliday, Councillor McMahon, Councillor Robinson, those opposed? Councillor Peruzza, that carries 3 to 1. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and we're going to move on to our next agenda item, which is PW 17.5 Reen Drive to Keniston Gardens Environmental Assessment Study. This was held in my name because we have one speaker, and hopefully the speaker is still here. If you would come forward, please. Jikbai, welcome. Thank you so much for waiting. Okay, bye. Thanks, Tenzin. So welcome. If you haven't been here before, the proceedings are as such. You just keep your eye on that clock, and we'll give you 5 minutes to speak. Make sure the microphone's on in front of you, and you can start right now.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Myungjik Bae, and I'm the owner of 23 Barbary Place, which is one of the properties in issue, which will eventually be expropriated. So as a property owner, and one of the taxpayers, I have some ideas to suggest. And if you wouldn't mind, I would like to show my map on the screen.
You can absolutely do that. No problem. Just put it on there and it'll show up on these two screens. Okay.
So this is what you see on the page 12 of 16 of the file. And it's the plan, it's the map of the plan suggested by the City of Toronto. And basically, you can see that it has been, the road has a little slight curve on it because there's a construction going on, the construction of the new condominium here. And the 23 Barbary Place, which I own, is the property in here. Okay, and basically, this was the original plan that I got from the City Hall. And originally, it was just nice and straight like this. But yeah, in the meanwhile, it has been somehow amended to have a little slight curve like this. And yeah, so it's kind of inefficient, and it would cost more for the building up and the maintenance, I believe. So once I get this information, I suggested to the city, I emailed it to straighten up to stick with the original plan to straight up for the efficiency for the construction and the maintenance. But the city replied back saying that that cannot be accommodated by the review, and yeah, after they review and they replied, they cannot be accommodated. So, so I suggest, well, if, sorry, so.
It's okay.
So if if it cannot be accommodated, so I hereby would like to suggest that, well, yeah, I hereby would like to suggest to expropriate just partial of the lot. Thereby city could save the cost of the expropriation and also construction of the road, as well as the maintenance. Because as per the current plan, there are a lot of part which is not efficiently being utilized. Like here, this part will be remaining as just usually grasslands. So I hereby suggest to the city that to sever the lot, to utilize just the southern part of the lot for the road, and the remain upper part under possession of mine, so I can use it for the adjacent lot, which is owned by my parents.
Okay. I don't know if there's any questions for you, but we're going to move to questions of staff if there isn't. And I guess Councillor Holyday would like to ask you one question. Okay, I'll just ask you, Councillor Shiner is a local councillor. Did you have a conversation with him about your concerns?
Well, yeah, Councillor Shiner was present in the information session when this plan was first introduced publicly. So I had a chance to speak with him.
Okay.
And I heard that this from him.
Okay, so we're gonna thank you very much for your remarks today. We're gonna move into committee, and we're gonna ask some questions related to this. So Councillor Holliday, you're first.
Thank you, Chair. To staff. There were 4 alternatives evaluated in the EA study. And I'll note, number 2 is to construct a new east-west street between Canaston Gardens and Barbary Place. And number 4 is, I'll paraphrase, a complete new street right from both ends of the block. Why did we choose a complete rebuild over simply building the component that's required?
Yeah, exactly.
So through the chair, these two sections of road were both identified through the Southeast Bayview Node Context Plan, which is attachment 1 in your report. So as part of the EA, as is usual practice, we looked at a number of options. There's a do-nothing option, just constructing the western new leg, just constructing the eastern new leg, or constructing them both together. Constructing them both together through the process came out as the best option, and that was what was originally suggested through the Bayview Node Context Plan as well.
So what supports it as a best option, understanding that there's already a private road there? And if I'm missing something about deficiencies on that road, I don't know, but I see a street already built. Why would we rebuild it again?
So the existing road that has been constructed is not constructed to city standards.
Okay, and how so?
So it needs to be reconstructed. So the sidewalks are substandard.
Okay.
And geometrically, it's substandard as well in terms of its alignment.
Can someone tell me who maintains that private segment today?
It's privately maintained, through the chair, it's privately maintained.
So that includes snow plowing and state of good repair?
Through the chair, yes.
And who are the private, do we know who the private owner is? Is it the adjacent condominiums?
Through the chair, yes.
So those adjacent condominiums would have, presumably, as part of their reserve funds and part of their reserve fund engineering, monies allocated to this. What happens to the money that's been allocated to this if the road is reverted to the city and they no longer have to look after an asset?
Through the chair, I'm not sure what would happen to those specific funds, but we have secured funding from that development to upgrade the road to city adoptable standards.
So they're paying us to take the road and the land from them?
Through the chair, the land is already ours. They're contributing to so that we can reconstruct the road to city standards, and then we would take the road over.
So you have to forgive me because I don't really fully understand. If it's a private road today, and am I hearing it's not on private land now? It's now on city land?
Through the chair, that's correct.
Is all of it on city land?
Sorry, through the chair. So Barbary over to Rianne is private, yes.
I'm sorry, I missed that one. There was just a bit of noise.
Sorry, through the chair. So the section from Barbary to Reen is, the land has been conveyed to the city, so it's city land, but the actual road itself is private and is privately maintained.
And forgive me, the Barbary to Reen, is that the existing road? That's the one that's built today. I don't have my aerial map in front of me, but I have this one.
Through the chair, yes, it is.
Okay, so that, and that's the private road that's already built, and we've heard that it's substandard in terms of the sidewalk and geometry. It's sitting on city land, so it's not actually a private road. It was constructed as a private road. Would that be a better way to describe it? You call it a private road?
Through the chair, it hasn't formally been dedicated to the city, so in that respect, it's a private road.
And where I'm going to that is, I'm just looking for the business case rationale. We've got a road that is private, that is being maintained by someone else, and we're going to bring it over into our responsibility, and I'm trying to find out why we would do that. And on top of that, we're going to rebuild it to have different standards. That's the segment I'm concerned with. The one that's new, that's being built, where there isn't a road today, I'm fine with. It's the new section. And the document doesn't really give the rationale. It just talks about the outcome of the EA consultation process and option 4 being the preferred option.
Okay, so through the chair, my understanding is that there are a number of pieces of that road which have been constructed incrementally over a period of time as a temporary measure. There was always an understanding that in the longer term, the road would be reconstructed by the city to city standards and would become a public road.
I see. And so there's funding that will come with this transaction to help with that reconstruction. And so what we're really only talking about is incremental maintenance going forward on that road. Am I correct, or is there any other costs that I need to be mindful of?
Through the chair, that's correct. Obviously, there's the property acquisition that's required.
Sorry, what was the last?
Yeah. So the property west of that segment, when we rebuild 23 Barbary Place, the deputant's property.
Right, and that's for the new road. Okay. I think my questions have been answered. Yep,
Yeah,
thank you.
you've done well. I have some questions too. These things really, I find these things very frustrating, and I feel we're not really drilling down deep enough into these. There was another one a few months ago in Councillor Layton's ward, and no, complete respect to Councillor Layton, it was prior to him being the councillor that it transpired, but I'm just concerned that it seems like we're building roads that, maybe I'm wrong, but it seems like we're building roads that developers should have built, or certainly funded. And so I'm not clear on why. I guess my first question is, what is this going to cost in total? What is this costing taxpayers?
Through the chair, the cost is $4 to $4.5 million.
So well above 4 million. And I guess, again, can you just walk me through how it's being funded, including the design, the construction, the property acquisition, all those pieces?
So through the chair, the current funding status of the project is it's an unfunded. It sits on what's termed the capital program status 7 list. So it's sitting on there as an unfunded project currently at this point in time.
So this is when we're talking about revenue tools, this is the kind of thing that bothers me, because we have all this unfunded capital work. This is one of them. And I have to question, like I did the former one a few months back, whether the developer should be, if they're creating these developments, why are taxpayers then left to foot the bill? And what's happening in the process to get us here, for instance, starts with planning, transportation's tail end of the process. How are we getting here that taxpayers end up footing this bill that should have been part and parcel of the planning, urban planning process? I know that's very difficult.
Through the chair, that's a very difficult question for me to answer.
Yes.
What I would say is that through those development processes, the land for the road where developers have been able to has been provided. So through those applications, the land has been secured, but the funds to deliver it haven't necessarily been secured.
So just to be clear on what you just said, the land's been secured and that was funded by the developer, but the rest of the pieces will be funded by taxpayers. The actual design, the nuts and bolts. Is that accurate description?
So through the chair, page 16 of the report, there includes a table which sets out the different land parcels, and you'll see if you look to the right-hand side that the majority of the land parcels were secured through the development approval process.
Right. Okay, well, this is frustrating. Anyway, thank you for your answers. Councillor McMahon.
Just a quick one, because you guys have piqued my interest. So is there a risk in leaving the existing, if I'm looking at attachment 4, the existing alternate 3, if we left that and just reconstructed, or just constructed 2? So we had new infrastructure at 2, but we left the existing for 3. Is there a risk, and what is that?
So through the chair, section 3 is clearly, obviously, the substandard, the constructed section.
So there is a risk, is what you're saying? Because it's substandard.
Sorry, and then just to finish off on there, we've obviously secured money from the development on that side to reconstruct that section of road. It was always constructed on the basis that the city would ultimately reconstruct it and take it over as a public road.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, we're going to move to speakers, and I don't know, I have a motion I'm going to put forward, because I don't know what to do with these types of scenarios where, in my impression, that we're not doing right by the taxpayer, but I've got a motion. Do you want me to move that first? Would that be helpful? If you could put it up on the screen. And so basically, I'd like to actually put forward a motion, but I can't, because we're not the planning committee. But where's a silo effect impacting this outcome, meaning between planning and transportation? So I can't put that motion forward, but what I can put forward is to develop some type of financial strategy that aims at this street being funded through development-related fees and charges. Because to me, again, it's just not right that we're at the tail end of the process as transportation trying to mediate this when it should have been handled at the onset in the early stages by the planning division, making sure that if they were planning a new neighborhood community, that the streets were being funded by the developer, because they're creating the development. So I just thought I'd put this motion forward and see what the committee's thought. I'm open to amendments or other motions or thoughts, but this was like a quick attempt at trying to do something to offset this massive, like billions of dollars of unfunded capital work that we have on our shoulders as a city council. I don't know. Anyway, that's my thoughts. It's fine. Okay, do you want to add to it? Go ahead. I'm open to anything.
I'm thinking on the fly here, Chair, so you have to forgive me, but I wondered if there's a way to consider the monies allocated in reserve for the segment that's already built, and to look at the speed or the throttle of the implementation of the reconstruction of the already built private road, and if there's a way to consider these as a whole. And I suppose that's technical because that has to do with the monies allocated through development fees, but one may argue that this is a contiguous element. And I'm improvising on the fly here. I don't know if that's acceptable.
That's okay. No, it's fine. To the clerks, could we amend my motion to include that, or?
Yeah, and if I have to sort of rehash the wording, I mean, yours stays integral, but the financial strategy that aims to fund the implementation of the new east-west street between Green Drive and Canaston Gardens from development-related fees and charges, such strategy to consider monies available or money secured from current development projects related to the segment of, the segment between, segment number 3, if I can get the right streets here. I guess it's between Barberry and Reen Drive, if possible.
What do we do with it? I think he wants to do it here. Can we just pause? Can we just stand it down and we'll move on to the next item and come back? Okay, so we'll work on that with Councillor Holyday.
If I could just jump in and so I get clarification so staff can follow. if I understand the councillor correctly, what he's looking at is the issue of all the benefiting landowners around that land as opposed to the specific developers? You're looking for a larger...
Or both.
Or both? Money already in the pot that are in the development charges. And, okay, because one of the challenges that we do have in the city, as we have infill growth, is whether a project's listed in the background study or not. And then when subsequent development happens, right? So that's an issue that is challenging for staff when they are managing it. So they need to be clear on which area they're going to look at.
Okay, we're going to stand this item down for a few minutes and... Thanks. So we're going to move on to PW 17.7. We've got 3 speakers on this item. One of the speakers is asked to move to the top, and apparently everybody's agreed to that. His name is Tim Lambrinos. So Tim, are you here still? Oh, thank goodness. Sorry for the long wait. Our apologies, Tim. Welcome, and you've got, make sure the mic's on in front of you, and you've got 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It was very entertaining thus
Yes,
far.
I'm sure. I'm sure it has been. Maintenance fees for pavers on city streets. That's the item.
That's fine. I wanted to introduce myself as a volunteer member of the Board of Management for the Emery Village Business Improvement Area. I've spoken to Mateus Didavipius of the Duke Heights BIA in agreement with what we're proposing before the committee today. The staff report before you, I find somewhat insulting to any one of the volunteers that spends an enormous amount of time in betterment of the city's development ideas. There's a complete disregard to the impact. The message is clear to me is stop what you're doing. You're being a nuisance, you pesky BIAs. You're putting in these beautification programs, and it's a problem for us. And we're going to penalize you, and there's problems with that I'm going to point out, Madam Chair. The first is that this item that includes BIAs and a definition of what's called third parties. They include what's called third parties. They include developers and private contractors and things like that, right at the bottom over here. The BIAs are not third parties. We're working as an arm's-length body with the City of Toronto. And for example, our budgets that we're going through right now for 2017, the line items are produced by the Economic Development Department that we work in partnership with to fulfill that. None of these line items were provided to add an extra cost for 2017. That means if this report gets implemented, then we'll have to cut something, cut a staff person, cut a project or whatever to implement these costs. That's what's wrong with it. And in fact, in terms of procedure, Madam Chair, there should have been, if you're going to deal with BIAs, the procedure bylaw dictates that business improvement areas are under the wing of the Economic Development Division, Economic Development Committee. So there should have been a joint meeting of the Economic Development Committee and the Works and Infrastructure Committee meeting today if you're going to deal with BIAs. I have a solution, so hear me out. The impact that the staff reports at the bottom, they start with the word well. So there are a numerous amount of positive things the BIA does. You're talking about beautifications, appeal, revitalization, financial resurgence, all these things. But this is what I was saying, it's rather insulting to someone like me who's a volunteer that they start off by saying, well, there are many possible aesthetic things. However, stop doing what you're doing, put in asphalt, you pesky BIAs. You are making it hard for us. You know what, the message is clear, Madam Chair, with all due respect to staff, you've got to get up to speed with the future, with today's things. And in fact, I believe that there should be some encouragement when it comes to private developers beautifying the city. No different than our Nathan Phillips Square was beautified and things of this nature. It all adds to the economy, economic resurgence, all these things. So essentially, I feel that it's inappropriately before us today. I've got a suggestion. And the first is that Perhaps the portion that refers to the BIAs being included as third parties, I think is contrary to the procedural bylaw, but perhaps that portion can be referred to the Economic Development Committee, because we have cost-sharing initiatives, we have 50-50. These are not third parties, they're 2.5 at most, or 2.25 if you want to put it that way. But I do believe, and I think Tabby is going to speak today, as well as Al Ruggiero, who's our project manager, about the technical aspects of it. I do believe that the BIA should be exempt. And if someone could move a motion to either refer the BIA portion to a proper review with the economic development, because our budgets are already being submitted for 2017, have a look at it, and that's all we ask today. Thank you.
Go back to the last items because we're time sensitive here. The motion I had put up, Councillor Holiday's decided to leave his additional motions till council to give him more time to figure it out. So if you could just put the vote back up on the screen, because I'd like to close that item so we can move on into this item deeper. So this was the motion that you already have seen. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, that carries. And the item as amended, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Okay, so we're back to this paver item, and we've got our next speaker is Al Ruggiero. Ruggiero, thank you for that help. Welcome, Al. You've got 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of committee and staff. The report, of course, my name is Al Ruggiero, and I'm the project manager for Emery Village BIA. I'm here to speak on the addition of new maintenance fees to our projects for pavers. The report identifies the growing pressures for streetscape projects by third parties, including BIAs, and the increased burden on transportation services to maintain these third-party encroachments. As one of Toronto's largest BIAs, we would be negatively impacted by the addition of these fees to our projects. Most streetscaping projects that we undertake bring us to the limit of the capital cost share formula and often exceed that limit. The city's portion of the BIA capital cost share program has not been increased substantially in years, while the number of BIAs, in fact, have grown substantially. So in our case, our paver selection are also spelled out in our landscape manual for landowners, which informs the private sector development on a shared design and pattern, which further identifies us in the area as part of the Emery Village landscaping. This is what is known as placemaking, and I believe part of that differentiation of our neighborhoods is part of the DNA that makes up our great city. It also is apparent for those who will be using other types of pavers that there will be an additional 15%, and that appears to penalize those that choose to do so. That again works against that diversity that as a BIA we often seek to distinguish the area. The fees will in effect discourage many landowners from using pavers altogether. It's a shame, given the growing use of these pavers and the diversity with new technology, things such as the permeable interlocking pavers that will help with evacuating surface runoff from overloading our sewer and stormwater systems. We use pavers mostly in the boulevard areas as a welcome alternative to impervious concrete and more often to replace ugly asphalt. Most of the applications are not, at least in our case, are not in clearways, therefore not subject to the conditions referred to in the notes, such as snow plow damage and others. We have never required the city to warehouse our pavers, nor is it difficult for contractors to find the source. I believe and expect that the city's maintenance department for our sector of Etobicoke York would also know of us. Therefore, what I'm saying negates the fact that there is an additional expense in conveying this information or in transporting this material to job sites. I referred earlier to asphalt. Just to be clear, those utility cuts are now covering vast sections of our concrete sidewalks and elsewhere. I don't think anyone likes to see that, and it's the delays in time. I understand that's being reviewed, but the delay in time in removing those to have a proper replacement of those concrete sidewalks, that's important. However, on the side of pavers, it's something that very often can be tackled therein by the removal and replacement of the pavers. That's instantaneous. It negates the saving, let's say, that we speak about in not adopting the use of pavers. Okay. So I would ask members to further review this. As you can see, the result of this additional cost bears more so on our business sector. In our case, where we exceed those, where we reach the limit of our BAA cost sharing, it falls to the business sector. Tim Lambrinos, who preceded me, is an example of the type of participation from our business that we welcome and we want to continue to see participate in the BIA programs, both at the level as business members, but also as board members. And I believe he reflects that notion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions for our speaker? Seeing none, we're going to move to our third speaker, John Carew, the head of Tabia. Welcome, John. Thank you again for waiting for so long. I know you're very busy, doing great things for Toronto.
Thank you,
Okay,
Madam Chair.
so you've got 5
Joining me
minutes.
is Briar DeLang from Bloor Yorkville BIA. Many of us know the Bloor Transformation Project, one of the largest capital improvements that has happened in the city, generated by the BIA. So just in case there is any questions, and if there is a few minutes after my presentation, she may chime in to cover my misses. Thanks again, Madam Chair. I must admit that a number of the BIAs are confused as why we are here. As was noted earlier, BIAs are not third parties. We are an agency of the city, and as such, we consider ourselves to be partners more than third parties out there. Our mandate falls within economic development. Chapter 19 specifically, which was approved by council, those are the rules of engagements that BIAs must participate in, which includes the capital cost share program. Section 19.3 specifically speaks to where council passes a designated bylaw, council may establish a board under this chapter, Section A of which is to oversee the improvement, beautification, and maintenance of municipally owned land, building structures in the business improvement area beyond city standard levels as provided at the expense of the municipality generally. BIAs have, over the years, maintained their improvements, and quite frankly, I don't know what has changed out there. I've been at this game for many years, as many of you know, and I've yet to see a BIA fail to deliver on its responsibility. If this report stems from third-party issues, including developers and condo corporations, and the transfer of site plan reserves, and then there is no money in place to make these improvements, quite frankly, let's deal with the cause, not the symptoms. And to that end, I would suggest that the BIA simply be removed from this report. We have shown that we are more than responsible for maintaining our assets, and quite frankly, we're not going away. Every year, council approves our budgets, and if there is a need for an uptake for a project that hasn't been fulfilled, council has every right to move in and increase that budget to make any of those improvements or maintenances. Upon reflection of what is before us, I believe that this should be part of a much broader report, which includes how we deal with utility cuts and getting permanent restoration to our walkable space significantly quicker than we're doing right now. As many of you have received calls from your constituents, utility cuts can take up to 18 months to be repaired after they've got in there. The asphalt bumps that are out there are a walking hazard, quite frankly, and yet there is a reserve to repair those, similar reserve to what we're speaking to in this particular case. That report should also include the review of administration fees and road allowance fees, which in some projects have proven to be almost 30% above the cost of the project. Are there administration fees to be charged on top of this proposed fee, or are they already incorporated into the cost? Some transparency on that would be most welcome. What exactly are we being asked to pay for? Madam Chair, not to flip this argument on its head, but maybe transportation services should be paying BIAs for relieving them of the ongoing maintenance costs to the many flankages that are within BIA's areas, where we take space that has lacked maintenance for many years, heaving asphalt and concrete and grass growing throughout it, and we turn them into parklets, including benches, interlock, and we continue to maintain those. Every dollar that goes to admin fees, permits, reserves, red tape, and is yet another dollar that is not invested in improving city assets for the benefit of our communities as a whole. Just as a quick example of what the true effect will be out there, College Promenade BIA is presently involved in a project that includes stonework, approximately 4,500 square meters of that. The reserve contribution as proposed by this report would be $287,408 upfront. A BIA that has a budget of about $300,000 annually. And that upfront is continuing to be a challenge. Quite frankly, it's not an opportunity to contribute over a period of time, even though the fact that all of these projects that are out there have a 2-year warranty. So why are those dollars needed at that initial stage when the BIAs could use them to do any initial project? Or is the expectation to pay for every square meter realistic? I've yet to see a project, and I'm sure transportation services will probably not know of a project that has failed completely. Complete failure on these projects is not realistic, probably hasn't happened.
You can't move an extension. Can you just wrap up?
I will in about half a second. So we've got, I'm looking at that clock and it's not moving.
Yeah,
so, Madam Chair.
unfortunately, it's a clock behind you. I don't know, it's ridiculous that this clock isn't working, but it's this one over here.
So nonetheless, you know, are we being expected to pay for 100% of anticipated failure where that has never occurred? So effectively, Madam Chair, what we see as two options. The first, as there is current practice to deal with BIAs and their strict maintenance through economic development, that BIAs be removed from this, and then as an alternative, that somebody move that the report be referred back to staff, as noted, to review some of these conditions and make this a little more palatable.
Okay, thank you. Is there any questions for John? No, seeing none. Thank you very much. All right, so we're going to move to questions of staff. We're in committee now, moving to questions of staff. Any questions for staff? Okay, Councillor McMahon has one.
Thank you very much. So, and it's my understanding that this is just for the pavers that are not the kind of the more decorative ones, not the city standard pavers, right? Was it?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, the answer is yes. The focus of the recommendation is to provide the labor costs that are associated with any paver maintenance. As you can appreciate, it takes more than just standard concrete, and pavers usually require additional maintenance regimes.
And do we have an idea as to how many BIAs in the city currently have these decorative pavers? I can think of Riverside has blue ones. I think of the representation today downtown, Bloor, Yorkville, right?
Right. It's a very good question. There's approximately 80 BIAs, and we're not completely aware of exactly what's out there, but I think the important thing to remember for all the BIAs or any third parties is that this is grandfathered. This is very much a go-forward approach.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we've got more questions. Councillor Holyday.
I'll be quick, Chair. Thank you. I wonder if someone could tell me what the estimated lifespan of a sidewalk is. And I don't mean just the little repairs that we make, but when we would go in and replace it, and how does that compare to the lifespan of the pavers? Would they be roughly the same?
Through the chair, I think we're talking about two different things. In terms of a concrete sidewalk, you know, it stands to reason. We've got sidewalks in subdivision built in the 60s that are just now at the end of their service life. Some of those bays are being replaced. So, you know, you're looking in some cases in the order of 40, 50 years.
Okay. So it would be reasonable to assume that pavers would have a very long lifespan, many, many decades.
I can follow up on that. Part of the research that we did was certainly they do, in some cases, and if properly installed, have a very long lifespan. Generally, over 25 years, we expect that at least once, we will have to go, at least once,
Okay.
that we would have to go in, pull up all the pavers, and relay them, putting the sand between the joints. That is an exercise that unfortunately in this day and age is still done by hand. That's not an expectation we would have with concrete.
So I'm just trying to get my head wrapped around on how you perform the actuarial work on the $55. So what I'm hearing is that that's going to allow for a significant piece of overhaul in about 25 years. Would you say that that is on the lesser side of potential costs, in the middle, or on the high side?
If for clarification, through you, Madam Chair, your question is if the $55 is in the middle, the lower, or the upper range of expected costs?
Is it enough? Does it meet the anticipated cost to the city, the anticipated incremental costs that style of sidewalk will cost the city, the taxpayer, to look after over and above a concrete sidewalk? Are we minimizing that cost? Could it be more? Could it be less? Right in the middle?
It is, based on our research, we believe it is the right value.
Okay.
We've looked at 5 years' worth of contracts, both those that we've contracted out and those performed by our staff. So we think this amount is reasonable. What we do suggest is that the advantage is that the funds go into a reserve and they're effectively ring-fenced by each project. And it'll provide us an opportunity over time to be able to actually track those amounts very specifically by unit and whether in fact this amount is completely reflective of what we anticipate the cost to be.
And I remember in the report there's a clause that we can ask for additional monies if those costs continue to escalate over time.
That's true. We would come back to council at that point in time.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Then we'll move to speakers. I'll just say I have a motion actually that staff asked me to move. And if the clerk could put it up on the screen. And so basically it's to meet with the ICP representatives prior to December 13th, when this, I guess, would go to City Council to consult and share information on paver products, installation and maintenance. So I guess maybe a little bit of oversight was in play here, and this was a missing link that was not addressed through the process, which I understand involved consultation. I might be wrong, but that was my understanding. So this is the motion staff have asked me to move. So I would just do that on their behalf. Then it would be wrapped into the final report or a supplementary report going, I guess it would be more, take a shape of a supplementary report going to the December 13th City Council meeting. So any other speakers on this item? Seeing none? Go ahead.
I'm going to move referral back to staff for the report to address some additional information. I understand that pavers and some pavers go out of style, some colors go out of style. They're not hung, people don't hold on to them. Later on, when you come back and have to do the work, you may have to, instead of replacing a handful of pavers, you may have to redo the whole thing because you can't find that anymore. I believe that your sort of one-size-fits-all approach to it, I think that to some degree, we do a disservice to our third-party, sort of our partners in this, the BIAs or anybody else. I don't see your report, for example, addressing limited usage of certain types of pavers that you may have access to 50 years down the road in some areas where some beautification may or may not be able to occur. I don't see, a standard. You folks sitting down with them and saying, let's find a standard that we can all live with to some. I know you're pointing to the thing and you say, yeah, it's here. Not quite in the way that I think you might be able to do it. So in the interests of working cooperatively with our BIAs, I'm going to put that motion before you so that maybe there's a middle ground where we can still get beautification projects to occur. We don't get pavers in the middle of Weston Road and Shepherd in the shape of a Canadian flag, and on bus routes where the buses just mangle it up, and then you have to fix it on an ongoing basis, and it becomes problematic. So we've learned a little. We need to learn a little more. Maybe we can do it a little better going forward. So I'm going to put that motion in front of you.
Can I ask you why you're referring it back to staff? Because a number of things you cited are actually in the report, if you read it, were addressed in the report.
That's exactly why I'm.
So why you, but we have to,
enough
you
work
can't
has
just
been
refer
done.
back to staff, you have to have a reason to refer back to staff. So what is your reason? Because
That's my
as I said, the points you made.
My reason
first of all,
is-
you didn't ask
is-
staff
is-
any questions, so they couldn't respond to what you're saying now. And secondly, the things you referenced are actually in the report, so it makes me wonder if it was read.
So in the interest of time, I'm not going to debate this with you. There's my motion. You vote on it how you like.
But I have a right to ask the mover of the motion questions, and my question is, why are you referring this back to staff? Because the things you've cited have been addressed in the report.
Because I don't believe, perhaps maybe that's not the way to move it back to staff, but I don't believe that our staff has actually sat down with our Economic Development Department.
Yes, they
Yeah,
have.
Yeah, I know that they're going to nod and say that they have done that. I get that. But I believe that there's a middle ground. I believe that there are some units or some standard pavers that one could go to. I believe that in some limited situations, you can actually develop a plan where you can sit down with the BAs and allow some of those things to occur without charging them basically a fee that, quite frankly, the way I understand it to work going forward is you charge them essentially a penalty up front for the use of those pavers, and 50 years from now, when you would be normally replacing a concrete sidewalk, you are going to replace a concrete, where a BIA comes in and does a concrete sidewalk or concrete curb work, they are not going to be charged anything. But where they come in and do and install some pavers, and if they last 50 years, they still get charged that fee for it, which is to some degree unfair. So
I'm asking you, it's me asking you the question, you're not speaking. My question is, why are you referring it back to staff?
the reason I'm addressing them, because I don't think that it would go through you in the same way. So, yeah.
Oh, my God. I asked you a question, and you haven't answered it. My question is, why are you referring it back to staff? You can't just refer a report back. Reports are supposed to move forward through the system. You're asking to refer it back. Everything you've cited has been addressed in the report. So why are you referring it back to staff?
Are you suggesting that my motion is out of order? Is that what your suggestion is?
No, my question is, why are you referring it
If
back
it's not out
to
of order,
staff?
put it to a vote. Let's move forward.
But why are you referring it back to staff? Doesn't know.
So you didn't understand what I said? Is that what it was?
Yeah. All right, all those in favor, so the motion before us is put forward by Councillor Perruzza. It's on the screen, where it was. It's coming back up. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, that loses. Okay, that's it. Oh, I'm sorry, yes, my amendment. Thank you for the reminder. There it is. As requested by staff, they want to do this piece of the consultation, which all those in favor, opposed, that carries. Item as amended. All those in favor, opposed, carries. All right. Thank you, and we're going to move on to our next item, which also has speakers. So just so everybody's aware, we have 4 items left. All have speakers as part and parcel of them that have waited all day to be part of this process. Again, I'll remind you. So the next item is PW 17.10, Sherburne Street and Wellesley Street Cycle Track Review and Design Improvements. Our first speaker is Jared Kolb, a frequent visitor from Cycle Toronto. Welcome, Jared. Thank you for, again, my apologies all on behalf of the committee. Thank you for waiting all day.
What a day.
Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. It's good to see you all. I am Jared Kolb, and here on behalf of Cycle Toronto, and here with, I think, some important and serious concerns around city staff's recommendation on this item. We believe the issue of improving the mobility options of Torontonians with accessible needs is a vital issue in our city. But we're concerned that the current recommendation to enable vehicles displaying valid accessible parking permits to load and unload persons with disabilities in cycle tracks pose an adverse safety risk to both cyclists and pedestrians in Toronto for the following reasons. I've got 5. The first, the proposed solution will increase tension between cyclists, motorists, and pedestrians, which is something we want to avoid. With nearly 120,000 active accessible parking permits in Toronto and 700,000 active permits across Ontario, people riding in protected bike lanes will likely experience some sort of interaction with these vehicles under the current proposal. However, due to the location of the accessibility tag on the front dash of the car, there's no way for a cyclist who's coming up from behind to know if the car has a right to stop there in the lane or not. Some will wait. The strong and fearless will risk venturing into the unsafe adjacent travel lane, and some may ride on the sidewalk, displacing risk onto pedestrians. This will result in increased tension between cyclists and motorists, which is already at a breaking point in Toronto. Number 2, there's no precedent for such recommendation in any other major city. San Francisco comes closest, but even it only allows cabs, and they must apply for the designation and display a sticker on their rear bumper. Toronto's Wheel-Trans vehicles have an important right to be in both bike lanes and cycle tracks in our city. But these are trained and professional drivers, and this ability should be restricted. 3, there was no consultation with pedestrian or cycling advocates in the crafting of this recommendation. With significant consequences for cyclists and pedestrians, I would submit, we feel a full consultation with all stakeholders is appropriate. 4, some people with disabilities use bikes as a mobility device and will be displaced if this proposal is accepted. We've heard from a number of our members who are in this camp. We don't have local numbers, and so the report is a little thin on this, but in London, England, 15% of people with disabilities ride regularly. And those folks will be displaced just like regular folks who are riding bikes as well. Specialized bicycles offer some people with disabilities the freedom and mobility they did not have otherwise. If their path is impeded by vehicles loading or unloading other people with disabilities, then cycling may become problematic for them. And 5, this is a direct challenge to the protected bike lane network in the city. Research demonstrates that separated bicycle lanes are substantially safer than painted bicycle lanes. However, safety is reduced if frequent incursions take place by vehicles, regardless of their accessibility status. The city has the responsibility to create accessible areas. You can't sidestep this responsibility by taking away from another vulnerable road user group. Make no mistake, if approved, this will be used to dismantle Toronto's protected bike lane network. A more comprehensive recommendation involves rethinking our bikeway design standards, and we're thrilled to see that city staff is embarking on that next year. Toronto should investigate designs developed in other jurisdictions. I'll give you some examples. This is Sherbourne Street here in front of, and that's actually an accessible loading space. What you see, though, is on the cycle track, a bicycle symbol, which promotes a lot of confusion for a lot of people when the disabled are being loaded and unloaded here. When we look at other jurisdictions, like the top one from Minneapolis, you've got a disabled symbol there. We think that that's totally appropriate to put in the cycle track itself. In another case in Vancouver, streets that have protected bicycle lanes, the perpendicular routes have the first space that's adjacent to that bike route is designated as an accessible parking spot. And so why don't we have that here in Toronto? We believe that this is something that really, we think that this item should be deferred and integrated into the on-street bikeway design guidelines process that city staff will be conducting next year. Our goal is inclusivity, and we strive to maintain the dignity and safety of all road users. Thank you.
We have two other speakers. Robert Brent is next. Welcome, Robert.
Thank you, Chair Robinson. It's nice to see you again.
Yeah, you as well. You as well.
I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak with you on item 1710, specifically to allow vehicles with Ontario accessible parking permits to load and unload their disabled passengers in bike lanes and cycle tracks. I'm appearing in support of Cycle Toronto's ED, Jared Kolb, who we just heard from, in his letter to you and the committee recommending deferral of this item to allow stakeholder consultation. Professionally, I've been a Cycle Toronto member for 8 years and just finished 6 years service as a director or 2 as chair of the board. In addition, over 19 years, I've attended the majority of TTC Commission meetings and am familiar with its Wheel-Trans transportation service for mobility challenged Torontonians. And finally, I served 3 years in the Toronto Parking Authority Board and became acquainted with on-street parking issues for both able-bodied and disabled drivers and passengers. Personally, in addition to cycling year-round, I also drive with an Ontario accessible parking permit, the result of a catastrophic hip infection in 2010 and 4 major hip surgeries to amputate and then rebuild my left hip. I was a Wheel-Trans client during my recovery and rehabilitation, using a wheelchair, walker, crutches, and cane as mobility aids during the 4 years I was unable to drive or walk. I believe the combination of my professional experience with the TTC, TPA, Wheel-Trans, and Cycle Toronto, and personally with my own disability, gives me some unique perspectives that I hope you'll consider in making your decision whether to support the deferral of this item to allow consultations with all stakeholders before staff develops their on-street bikeway design guidelines. Firstly, the sheer numbers of Ontario accessible parking permit holders, along with Wheel-Trans and related contract taxis, picking up and dropping off disabled passengers and clients daily in bike lanes and cycle tracks will overwhelm them, negate their safety benefits, and reducing Toronto's cycling modal share just as it's starting to flourish and grow, thanks to Public Works' past support. Secondly, you should be aware that disabled passenger pickup and drop-off isn't necessarily a 30-second to 1-minute task as it is with able-bodied passengers, particularly with the profoundly mobility disabled using large, heavy, battery electric motorized wheelchairs. With the Wheel-Trans service, drivers may have to go to the front door to call the client, they may have to deploy a ramp, release or attach wheelchair tie-downs, assist frail clients up or down the ramp and accompany them to their vehicle or building destination unless so declined by the client. It would not be unusual to take 5 to 10 minutes to board or unload a Wheel-Trans client using a motorized wheelchair. Thirdly, as Cycle Toronto notes, many bike lanes and cycle tracks are fairly narrow, often just a half car lane width, so any parking in it effectively obstructs half the adjoining car lane and may force two car lanes into one, with the added chaos of cyclists also streaming into the merging car traffic. Multiply this millions of times over in a year, and the risk of cyclist vehicle collisions will increase dramatically, inevitably resulting in cyclist property damage, injuries, and possibly deaths in the extreme. Around the world, cities are struggling with how best to design streets, complete streets for the benefit of all its users, and not just cars or other motorized vehicles. It's not easy to get right, And I hope in fairness to all road users, you'll support the deferrals and allow full stakeholder consultations on their recommendations. Thank you very much for the opportunity to present to you.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Seeing none, we're actually just, that was the last speaker. It was another item I was thinking of. Go ahead. Yes, there is
Sorry.
one quick question, Bob.
Sorry. So just in, so do you know what they do in other municipalities? How they, people with mobility challenges embark and disembark from vehicles?
I honestly think that would be a better question for Jared. I just have my own personal experience. I grew up in Vancouver and cycled as 7 years at UBC and on Vancouver Island, but unfortunately, Councillor, I'm not aware of what other cycling advocacy groups are doing in other cities. I'm sorry.
What about you in the city of Toronto? How would someone with, in your experience with mobility challenges, how would they get, what's the alternative to what's being proposed today?
Well, I think in many cases, the provider, it's not just the Wheel-Trans trucks, they only do, if I'm not mistaken, about 40% of the trips. It's often accessible taxis. It's often, I had trips on sedan taxis, and they have no need to park in a cycle track if they're just unloading someone with a walker or a folding wheelchair. And for example, at outside Mars on College Street eastbound, it's a very fast zone for cyclists. They just stream right by there, and yet there's parking on the side street, Elizabeth Street, or around on University by Toronto General Hospital. So usually, and I know that there's one case, and I can't remember it when I was preparing, that there's one city, maybe Jared remembers, where the practice is to unload on the side streets, not on the main avenues. And the worry I have is that as soon as you have one car, one taxi in a bike lane, it's just open season. And right now, we have a real difficulty with couriers, with shredder trucks, and others, going for their Tims or their Starbucks by parking in it. And so I think you really have to have a zero tolerance policy, but still do it with real sensitivity to the people who have mobility challenges.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we will now move to questions of staff. Councillor McMahon.
Sorry, I know we're crunched for time, so I just have a couple. So first of all, with regards to the first deputant's presentation and those photographs that had, I can't remember what municipality it was, whether it was Vancouver or not, the first spot in the lane was allocated to an accessible parking spot. That and then the road markings, what you thought of those ideas?
Those are both great solutions through the chair. They are solutions that we would incorporate into the design guidelines for on-way bikeways, on-street bikeways. But the challenge is that we also need to be able to serve people with accessibility issues and mobility challenges on a more equal basis than just providing the current exemption for Wheel-Trans passengers.
Okay, thanks.
I have a question, and I don't want to blow your motion, but I wanted to ask a motion. So Councillor McMahon has a great motion that I'm going to be supporting, but I'm just worried about cost. So I think you've seen her motion about looking at possibly somehow marking back of vehicles, and I won't, she'll go into more detail later, but who would pick up that cost if that was to come to fruition or that was to be pursued? Who would pick up that cost? Would that be, a provincial act versus a city act, and who would fund it? What body?
Through the chair, we're looking currently at working with Wheel-Trans on the design of a decal to put on the back of Wheel-Trans vehicles so that it's clear that they're allowed to be, as they currently are, in cycle tracks to be able to stop and provide service to passengers. But we are discussing the opportunity of also having a decal available to other people with this, with the permit. The cost would not be a high cost. We haven't yet determined where that would be sourced from.
So if this was to come to fruition or transpire, would it would be the city that facilitates that, or the province, or who would be the the executor of this initiative if that was to come?
This suggestion would be specifically related to city infrastructure, so I would anticipate that would be a city cost.
Okay, just so it's clear. Thank you. I think that's all the questions. We'll move to speakers. Councillor McMahon.
Thank you very much. So I have a motion here, which hopefully is up on the screen. And so, you know, I think this is a very sensitive issue. We want to allow our streets to be safe and open for everyone. And as a cyclist, I definitely understand what our second deputy was saying, that if a vehicle sees another vehicle parked in a bike lane, then they're thinking, oh, I can do that too, even though they're not realizing that it's an unloading or loading temporary situation of someone with a mobility issue. So I'm just moving this to look at, there needs to be some sort of strong visual for you, for cyclists when they're coming down the bike lane, because I'm certainly ringing my bell and sometimes even yelling at drivers who are parked in the bike lanes. So if we have some sort of visual, then a visual clue, then it's to the cyclists and other drivers as well, that they would know that it's a temporary allowance for unloading, embarking, disembarking of someone with mobility issues. So I'm looking for a signage, decals, whatever the heck, flashing light that says temporary assistance or something. And so I'd have like your support on that. Thank you.
Okay, that's the only motion before us, unless there's any other speakers. Councillor Holyday, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Councillor McMahon, I can't support this one. For all of the very same reasons that everyone was critical over putting a license plate or a sticker on a bicycle, that it's administrative in nature. How do you deal with changes? How do you verify that the individual qualifies for it? How do you deal with visitors from out of town? Look, this is just adding a layer of administration. I really can't see the value that we'll get out of such a large process. We're going to have pirate stickers maybe, I don't know. But I just can't support this add-on.
That's okay. Okay, thank you. Any other speakers? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. So all those in favor of recommendation 3, new recommendation 3, to be included as follows above on the screen. All those in favor? That is 3. Those opposed? That carries. And I guess, yes, item is amended. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Okay, we're moving to 17.11, bicycle traffic control signal, St. Clair Avenue West. We had one speaker on that. If they're still in the room, that was Ken Brown. Is Ken still here? Seeing none, does someone want to move that item? You have a motion, okay. Do you want to move your motion?
Chair, I do, but I wondered if we could stand it down because I've just been informed it needs to be adjusted.
Yeah, so we'll come back to 17.11. 17.13, road safety for school children. We do have speakers on this, just one speaker, Nancy Smith-Lee. Again, Nancy from TCAT has waited all day. Thank you for doing that, and welcome.
Thank you. So good afternoon. So I'm Nancy Smith-Lee. I'm the director of TCAT, the Toronto Centre for Active Transportation. We're a project of the Registered Charity Clean Air Partnership. So I'm here just to speak about the topic of road safety for school children. Specifically, I wanted to tell you about the Guide to Safer Streets Near Schools. I have a copy of it here, and it's just asks for your support for the guide and also to accelerate safety measures to protect our most vulnerable road users. So just a little background on the guide. It was developed, it was led by Green Communities Canada in partnership with TCAT, University of Toronto, Toronto Public Health, Toronto District School Board, and Cultural Link Settlement and Community Services. So it's a resource which is an easy-to-follow guide to traffic safety policies in Toronto, and it covers 3 overarching areas of traffic safety: speed limit measures, traffic calming measures, as well as intersection and major road crossing measures. And steps to follow are presented in simple language and accompanied by photos, samples, and editable templates for download from the website saferstreetsnearschools.ca. So the purpose of the guide is really just to empower residents, especially school communities, to work with the City of Toronto to improve streets for children and people of all ages to safely walk and wheel for transportation and recreation. Many parents and residents want to make changes in their neighborhood but have difficulty finding and understanding the relevant policies and processes available in Toronto. So the guide came about in response to an identified need by parents who feel the streets around schools are unsafe and who want to make change but don't know where to begin. So while the focus is on policies, we fully recognize that this is only one piece of the puzzle. So the guide complements and links to the newly released City of Toronto Road Safety Plan. So the development of the guide involved a literature review of traffic calming and speed limits, a review of relevant city and provincial policies, interviews with a wide range of stakeholders, including transportation services, and pilot testing with 3 school councils. The guide is timely. Last Friday, Metro News reported that there have been 26 children struck by cars in Toronto in less than 6 months. So that is a child every week. Data from Toronto Police show that children seriously injured while heading to and from school is on the rise, and children are more likely to be seriously injured when hit. 27% of crashes involving children result in serious injuries, compared to 14% of all collisions. So we recognize that the Safer Streets Near School guide is in no way in and of itself can fix this very serious problem, but we saw a gap in terms of parents having trouble accessing the information they need and felt we could make a contribution by developing it. So we distributed the guide widely through our partners and networks, and TDSB is circulating it to all of its eco schools. We've printed 100 copies of the guide, and a French translation of the guide is in process. So we hope that through widespread distribution of the resource that we can expedite the process to improve the safety of Toronto children walking and cycling to school. So I'd ask that you consider helping to disseminate the guide and to promote it, including linking it directly on the city's website. We'd also ask that you consider accelerating the aspects of the road safety plan related to speed, as we know that this is a contributing factor in all road fatalities. A Toronto Public Health report found that there were 0 pedestrian collisions on roads where the posted speed limit was 30 kilometers an hour. In order to actually achieve 0 fatalities, we need a more widespread city approach to reducing speed limits to protect our most vulnerable road users. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions? Councillor Holyday, and then I'll move to McMahon.
Thank you. Thank you for speaking to us. Can you tell me a little bit about the extent of, you just talked about, in here it says there's some collaboration with the City of Toronto. Can you tell me the collaboration that you may have done with the Transportation Services Department?
Sure. And just to be clear, I'm not the primary author on the report. She's not available, but I am aware of the process. And so the authors of the report shared the report with Transportation Services staff and got their feedback on it.
Can you explain the mechanism of that? When did
How that happened, actually?
Yeah. Who did they share it with? How did they get the answer back? And
it was all through email, so just sending a direct, copy to them by email, and then getting their feedback on, kind of what we had right, where there were some issues.
Did they share all aspects or the completed guide, or was it during the authoring of it? I'm just curious about that.
Yeah, I believe that we certainly did give it the completed guide to them at the end, and there were final drafts were shared with them.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor McMahon.
Thank you very much, Nancy. Thanks for waiting all day and coming in with this fantastic guide. I love it. Thank you for doing all the hard work on that with your team. So I'm just wondering, as far as distribution, so you're suggesting we have the links on our websites and in our electronic newsletters, things like that. And then for hard copies, and even soft copies, is the TDSB, are they sending that out to all their schools, not just their eco schools, but every school?
The distribution, Toronto Public Health has produced some more copies, I believe. But they're going out by soft copy to all the schools, but we don't have the resources for all of them, I don't believe. I might be wrong on that.
Okay, I can ask staff on that afterwards. And what's the feedback been so far since?
Yeah, it's been very helpful, and it's been really good. And in fact, we changed the kind of the way that the guide, the downloadable templates for the guide in response to feedback that that there are some communities that just really kind of need to be starting from square one, like who is my counselor, how do I approach my counselor, what do I even say to my counselor? So we've got good feedback on that, and it's been downloaded hundreds of times from our website.
Fantastic, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the speaker? Seeing none, well, thank you very much. We'll move to staff. Any questions for staff? Go ahead, Councillor McMahon.
So just to follow up on that question as to how and if we are distributing this guide, I guess with public health.
Yeah, hi. Yes, it's all hard copies going out to through all of the district school board, the distribution through our public health nurses. So a hard copy will be sent, and through the clerk's department, it was forwarded as well to all the school boards.
So it will go, you're saying, to each school, so through their public health nurse, so will he share that with the principal or the parent council, or how does that disseminate from there?
It will be included. Toronto Public Health has
Point of order, Madam
a
Chair.
guide that is given
If you
to
need
all
to
the
move any
schools.
bylaws to end the meeting, I have to leave, so I would encourage you to do that.
Okay, sorry.
So it's part of a resource package that is distributed to all the schools, and the resources are discussed with the principal, and it will be included for, if they want more information, it will be provided to them.
Thank you.
Councillor Holyday, did you have a question?
I did. It'll be a quick one. I was looking for the page here. Just to follow on my questions to the deputy and to staff, through you, Chair, can someone describe the process of consultation with the Transportation Services Department, considering the subject matter here is heavily laden with transportation services work? Or related to their work, I should say properly. Is anyone here that could comment or would have been involved in it?
Public Health was part of the research team, and there were transportation services staff that were interviewed as key informants. They agreed to be interviewed as with any research project. They were confidential informants. Plus, the drafts of the guides were given to a variety of people within transportation services for their revisions, and their revisions and comments were incorporated into the guide.
I'm sorry, did you say confidential informants?
Yes, for research, it was a research project led by a variety of research partners. So that's
Understood.
how it started off.
Okay, and this question here is more for the transportation services folks. One of the pages in here is page 9, which is Path 1C district-wide speed limit reduction. And I know that this item was discussed in various public forums, maybe at this committee or at council. You have to forgive my memory here, but could you provide some comment on the advice from transportation services regarding this type of initiative? If there's even some general advice. Maybe about drivers' compliance with wholesale changes in speed rates, speed differentials. And if it's something that's best put back to the meeting minutes, I can do that. Yeah, I'd accept that answer as well. I'm putting you on your spot. Fair enough.
So through the chair, yes, I would prefer the latter, please.
Recognizing that both individuals in the room weren't in the meetings at the time. Okay, I think those are my questions. I'm good.
Item? I've got to say a couple words myself. Councillor Holyday, go ahead.
I do have a motion, and Rather than receive the report, I'm suggesting that it be referred to the Acting General Manager, Transportation Services, requesting further consultation. And I'll explain why. I want to thank the folks that worked on the guide. It's inspirational, but I mean that twofold. The first is there's some great information in here that I haven't seen published elsewhere. For instance, some discussion on all-way stops and why they don't, or they should not be used as speed control device measures. But there are some pieces in here where I see an inconsistency with advice that I believe that I received through various forums, especially district-wide speed reductions and the concern that have been raised through the transportation services folks about those type of initiatives. But the broader concern that I've got here is that there's an implication that there may be a bit of a political process associated with traffic calming and speed and safety measures. And if I've learned anything in the couple of years that I've been here so far, it is that the best advice comes from the experts sitting behind me, who are the transportation services folks. And it's okay to ask residents about what they think about different things and to talk about solutions, but to get recommendations on solutions, it really should come from a neutral expert. And this guide talks about petitions and talks about solutions and working towards those, and there's a bit of a catalog of them. And I'm not very comfortable with the process that that suggests. And I'm not saying that this guide is wrong or should be discarded. I think there's some great stuff in here. I just wondered if there needs to be a little bit of further consultation with transportation services, in particular with consistency with policies and procedures that they have and how they approach, I'll call them these mini projects, and what the guide suggests as a route. And the largest fear that I have is that if we don't address these inconsistencies, is that it goes out there and it creates expectations amongst those that read it to say, oh, this looks fantastic. Here's an idea for a crosswalk. Here's an idea for traffic calming. Here's an idea for bump outs. Councillor, go and install it. And we'll give you a petition that says go and install it. And that doesn't necessarily mean that that is the best and right solution. And if you take your time and you read the text, it begins to tell you and make you understand where and when they're used. But I'm not quite convinced that this isn't going to result in some of those situations and further tensions where some of these things are not deliverable or are not the best solution, and what we end up with is some conflict and maybe even situations where folks feel dissatisfied with their city, even though just because things proceed down a different path. And I'm hoping maybe there's an opportunity for transportation services to further work with the authors of this and get things identified just a little bit crisper in terms of the process, and how the political side of the process needs to be decreased and the technical, neutral, expert advice side needs to be increased. I don't think we celebrate the quality of the advice that we get from our staff often enough, and I'd like to see more of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McMahon?
Well, I just had a question to the mover of the motion.
Madam Chair, I understand that the staff says you might need to do. I have to leave. You're going to lose quorum. I appreciate the ongoing dialogue on the guide, but you might want to do that. Because I know he has a council holiday as a and that's the item that staff suggested.
I think we're,
I want to get that.
yeah, but we're just wrapping up this item too. Councillor McMahon, do you want to go ahead?
So I just a quick question. So your intention is not to delay this at any, for any reason. It's just you want more fulsome
Councillor
kind of
Proots,
information.
if you leave the room, we lose quorum.
Right? Yeah.
My understanding of the procedure and the process before us is that really the only other choice we have is to receive the item, which doesn't really achieve any furthering of the yardstick on the process. It's my hope that Transportation Services, Public Health, and the authors of this will continue to talk and further refine.
Hey, I have to
Great,
cut you
thanks.
off. I have to cut you off.
15 minutes now to get quorum, so 15 minutes.
So unless we can get quorum in 15 minutes, we have to recess the meeting, adjourn the meeting. So unless somebody can convince Councillor Harutza to come back. We've lost her, and we've had people sitting here all day waiting to speak, which to me is deplorable, like unbelievable. Same thing happened at North York Community Council last week, and same person was involved. So Councillor Moser's in the hospital, Councillor Lee's in Asia. This is, to me, very unacceptable situation that we've lost quorum twice today. Just unacceptable. To people who come out and want to be engaged in their city and they wait all day to speak, it's nothing short of remarkable. So I've been told by clerks we can't proceed. We have to adjourn the meeting, or we have to, Nancy was here all day waiting, and this gentleman behind her has been here all day since 9:30 waiting to speak on their items. I can't talk, I'm too angry.
Chair, so I'm just, our clerks, so is there any way that we can hear from people in spite of not having?
I would absolutely 100% support that if
I
the
don't
clerk's
know.
department would allow it.
The procedural bylaw is very clear and very specific. The meeting cannot continue on an informal basis. Once the roll call has been made. However, we have 15 minutes to obtain quorum before the meeting can
We
be
have
called.
we have four items left,
Okay.
and we're basically three-quarters way done two of them. We have achieved quorum. Thank you to Mayor John Tory joining us, which is incredibly unfortunate that that's what we have to resort to, and we've lost quorum. We lost quorum almost twice today. So the item we were on, just to be clear, was road safety for school children. Councillor Holladay had placed a motion, and Councillor McMahon, you had just spoken. Were you complete?
Point.
Okay.
I just asked a question, and I think you were answering it.
And to further that point, my objective is certainly not to suspend the process before us, but simply give an opportunity for a dialogue to occur between transportation services and the folks at Public Health. I don't want to set back the project. There's too much good in this. But there are a few spots that I do have a little bit of concern, as I articulated, that in some ways it reads off as kind of a path to success, and I believe there should be more weighting given to the neutral advice that our staff provide in the Transportation Services Department.
Great, thanks.
Okay, and I'll just quickly say thank you to the authors of this booklet. It's a very important issue, and clearly there's been a decline in children walking in Toronto, so this is good news. I agree very much, though, with Councillor Holladay's assessment that if we really want to see substantial change and tangible change, kind of boots on the ground and road design changes, we really have to make sure transportation is very much a part and parcel of this process. So I would thank all those involved in this initiative and look forward to transportation being more involved. So I will be supporting Councillor Holladay's motion, which if the clerks could put on the screen. And I will say all those in favor, opposed, that carries. Okay, let's just go back quickly to the item we didn't complete because Councillor Holladay wanted to just recheck his motion. So it's bicycle traffic control signal, St. Clair Avenue West and Poplar Plains Road. Councillor Holladay?
If I may speak, Chair. So I had spoken to clerks, and I think I'm going to not place a motion because there needs to be a little discussion, if any, but I will say one point. I understand and appreciate the merits of the installation of the bicycle traffic control signal. The one concern that I have with this is that we're going to go through a tremendous amount of effort to install a piece of technology that may cause delay to thousands of TTC riders to the benefit of some cyclists, but temper that with the fact that I went on to Google Street View, and sure enough, you look at the Street View and there's somebody hopping the tracks with their bicycle. And so it's, that old adage of, you draw two lines and you see the path worn in the dirt, people take the path of least resistance, and I get it. Cyclists do not want to wait for the J-turn signal 100 meters to the right to go left on that street. They'll take the shortest distance because they're on a lightweight two-wheeled vehicle, and we do owe it to them as the staff have supported the installation of this technology. But what I will say is we're going to go through all this expense and we're going to go through all this trouble, and I am worried that people are not going to wait for that light because it's going to take some time. They're going to be stopped at a red light and they're going to blow it anyways. So with that, I really hope that the local councillor will work with the police afterwards to study the success of the implementation and to correct any behavior of anybody that doesn't comply with the signal after we've gone through all of this trouble to make it much safer. And that's all I'll say. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll move, does somebody want to move the recommendations? Councillor McMahon, do you want to move? Councillor McMahon is moving the staff report. All those in favor, opposed, that carries. And we're now moving, we have two items left and one speaker with each item. It's PW 17.14, preventing injuries from wintertime slips and falls in Toronto. And our speaker is Nancy Smith-Lee from TCAD again. Welcome, Nancy, again, back to the speaker podium there, and you've got 5 minutes.
Thank you. So on behalf of TCAD, I'm here to speak to the topic of preventing injuries from wintertime slips and falls in Toronto. We're in support of the recommendations made by Toronto Public Health, particularly to clear all sidewalks in all parts of the city. This is common practice in other Canadian cities such as Montreal, Ottawa, and Quebec. We're also in support of changing the snowfall threshold to 2 centimeters for all sidewalks. Especially in Toronto's climate, if snow is not cleared until 8 centimeters is accumulated, it can become compacted and icy and make it very difficult to walk. TCAT has presented to the committee on different occasions over the past few years. We feel that the current level of service for clearing walkways is unacceptable. Walking is a healthy mode of transportation and can be an all-year activity, but the slippery road conditions and poor snow clearing quality are significant barriers. The Toronto Public Health Report shows that each year Toronto is found negligent in slip and fall lawsuits for its failure to remove snow and ice, and pays out about $6.7 million annually of taxpayers' money to resolve these claims. These costs, as well as the human and healthcare costs of injuries sustained by Torontonians, could be dramatically reduced by improving sidewalk clearing. The main shortcoming of the current winter maintenance program is the piecemeal approach to winter clearing for sidewalks. Improved snow clearing has multiple benefits: reduced injuries, reduced cost to taxpayers, improved physical and mental well-being by enabling people to walk regularly year-round, increased independence, particularly of seniors and people with disabilities. Many people become prisoners in their own homes over the winter months because sidewalks are insufficiently plowed, and due to their fragile state, they risk serious injury if they fall. So we'd like to commend Toronto Public Health for its evidence-based report on the impact of wintertime slips and falls, and would urge the committee to adopt the recommendations to improve Toronto's sidewalk maintenance practices. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Seeing none, I'll ask if there's any questions of staff. Councillor Holladay?
Just a quick one here. So we get sued because people slip and fall. What is the basis of the lawsuits? Is there a sort of a broad way to describe it? I heard negligence in the deputant's discussion.
Yeah, through Madam Chair, the basis of the lawsuits or the basis of claims are people bring injuries or sustain injuries on sidewalks. They allege that the city did not maintain its standard of care for for snow removal on the sidewalks. So it's a standard of care allegation.
Okay, and so if we increase our standards or make them harder to attain by reducing the level at which they will plow snow from, I'm sorry, was it 8 centimeters or 7 centimeters to 2 centimeters? Will that increase or decrease potentially the number of lawsuits?
Well, I think it's a matter of whatever the standard is. It's a matter of the city adhering to the standard and then being able to demonstrate that we've done that. So wherever we set that bar, we've got to be able to meet that, have the resources to meet that standard and do that work.
Presumably, the bar of 2 centimeters is much more difficult, and would it be a reasonable assumption, though, if we make it more difficult, that we open ourselves up to more lawsuits?
Yes, I would think it would, yes.
Right, thank you very much.
Okay, seeing no other questions, I would just move this item, move to receive this for information. All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. And our last item and last speaker, Murray Rubin. Welcome, Murray. If you could head toward the microphone. This item is PW 17.15, Smart Roads Technology. Welcome, Murray. I know you've waited all day, and I've been very patient, so thank you for your patience and for being here today. You have 5 minutes.
I am an 86-year-old Toronto resident, but I want to reassure everybody, especially the mayor, that I'm not senile. I was born in the city, and ever since I can remember, there have been problems with cars and traffics. The problems have been exacerbated by the growth of the city with its people, and of course, the inevitable growth of automobile traffic. The answer has always been to buy streetcars and buses, build subways, make wider roads, all of which are very expensive. in that period of time, the activities of the population have essentially not changed. We build communities, government buildings, factories, schools, universities, sports stadiums. But the traffic problem persists. In a democratic system of government, after the proper civic committees have had their say, the people in our communities are free to live their lives as they see fit. That cannot be changed by the force of law, but it can be changed with the compliance of our citizens, if it's in their interest to do so. Saving money on taxes is in their interests. Our politicians want to solve the traffic problems as they have in the past by spending public money and dislocating the lives of our citizens as little as possible, because unhappy citizens do not vote for politicians who create the unhappiness. It was Albert Einstein who defined insanity in the following way: doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. That is what our city politicians have been doing in the 86 years I have lived in Toronto. I propose to take another course of action which will relieve the problem, but for a short period of time will dislocate our citizens. Our citizens will adjust. I am sure you have traveled on our main streets: Yonge, Bloor, St. Clair, College, Dundas, and Eglinton. I venture to say, though I haven't counted, half the stores and the buildings have no numbers. Cars travel at a snail's pace to get where they want to go because they don't know where they are. Pass a bylaw, Mr. Mayor, to make building owners put a visible number on each building, including stores and restaurants. Second, force large companies who deliver on main streets with large trucks to do so at night or early morning when they do not block traffic. This will cause dislocation for businesses and offices because they will have to change the hours of a few of their employees. It can be accomplished, and people will get used to the change. Force subway and road constructions to do the work at night if there is no noise. Oh my gosh. I live on Avenue Road and Heath Street West. There is bumper-to-bumper traffic on Heath Street because at St. Clair...
Unfortunately, you just have to wrap up, please.
I've got 1 minute.
Okay, just if you could wrap up quickly.
Because the traffic on St. Clair is tough because of different tracks. I can look out on Heath Street and early in the morning up to 8:15 a.m. the traffic flows quickly. As if by magic, after 8:15, The cars are backed up. Why? Because everybody is going to work for 9 a.m. We have to stagger the opening and closing hours of schools, factories, offices, and government buildings. Perhaps as little as 15 minutes would be helpful. Government buildings can be forced to change. Private companies may have to be given tax incentives. Have you ever noticed how easily traffic flows on school holidays during the week? It will require some additional staff at City Hall to negotiate with the institutions involved and for private companies to get City Council to provide some tax incentives.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I just want, listen, I've been working for 10 years on this, please.
Okay, if you could just wrap up very
I
quickly.
spoke at length with Rob Ford, Miller, and the office of John Tory, who all said my ideas are worth exploring. Nothing has ever been done. It can be done if the will is there. You can at least try it. This is not a complete answer, but certainly it is worth looking into. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions for our speaker? No, you're not a councillor, you're the mayor.
Well, it's okay. Sir, thank you very much for the deputation. And just when you say nothing's been done, I wanted to ask if you were aware, I think your idea of numbers on stores, because I've been through the experience myself, you drive along, you're trying to find a place and you're looking. We have begun to explore what we might be able to do with deliveries, but are you aware of the fact on the night construction, and Mr. DeAndrea is here, he would probably confirm the numbers. I think I'll cite that it's somewhere between 10 and 20, is it around 10% of our contracts, you just nod if that's about right, a little, or maybe a little more, that we actually have moved to a either 24-hour construction period or to much later hours, dependent upon the neighborhood. Are you aware that we are doing that?
No, I wasn't aware, but I appreciate that you're
And it's
looking
with a
into
view to
it.
getting these things done faster. And we're also exploring, because there was a motion put to City Council, the idea of having hours more flexible here so that you could have our own work staff coming and going at a more staggered time. So I just wanted to make sure you were aware, and you say you are aware at least of the road construction thing, or at least you now are, because we made you aware, and you make very good sense.
Thank you very
What
much.
you said about what we might suspect of you. No one could possibly expect that. Thank you very much.
Any other questions for the speaker?
No, just to reinforce the mayor's point, I'm very proud of this. This is the road being torn up in Ward 3 at about 10 o'clock at night. And it's very noisy. We went out on a limb because we realized how difficult the traffic was. So you've got some great points in there, and I think, as the mayor said, we are working on it.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I appreciate very much your allowing me to get the unhappiness of I have felt. Believe me, when I said I spoke to Ford and I spoke to Miller, I couldn't get you, I got your office, and I appreciate that it's happening.
Yeah, as the mayor said, Michael DeAndrea, who's the head of all of that some of your references, he'd be an excellent person to speak to after the meeting, because we actually, as the mayor has indicated, we've implemented a number of those measures. So those are great ideas.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So if there's any speakers on this matter, I would just move motion that the item be referred for consideration to the General Manager of Transportation Services. I have to say that there's already a staff working group underway working on smart roads technology, so we're ahead of the curve and working on this. So while we appreciate Councillor Holliday's motion, staff have already been looking into this and working on it. So thank you to staff for those efforts, and all in favor of the item before you? That carries unanimously, and that adjourns our meeting. Thank you very much to the mayor, Mayor Tory, for saving the day. Otherwise, we might have lost quorum twice, which might have been a record, an unfortunate record. Thank you, everyone, and to city staff.